This bearded guy with glasses looks absolutely livid as he screams out Alicia's name. He's clearly about to lose it, pointing his finger and telling her she's officially banished from his domain and the whole Bromia's territory. Alicia just stands there looking completely lost, barely able to get a word out while the reality of being the 16-year-old daughter of a count kicks in. She stays surprisingly calm though, just standing there with a little creature chilling on her head, flowers and leaves floating around her like everything is totally fine. She looks out over the landscape and asks for someone to watch over the Alicia Bromia's territory, sending a quiet message up to her mother in heaven. She's been thinking about her a lot lately. Alicia remembers back to when her mom was still around, telling her she really took those old words to heart and kept them with her until today. We see her as a little kid, constantly buried in stacks of books and messing with lab gear, basically working herself to the bone to be the perfect daughter for a lord. Some guy nearby looks totally floored by what she's saying, but it doesn't change the facts. The man's voice echoes through the whole estate, telling her she's officially cut off from the family. Alicia is stumbling back in total shock, asking her father to wait and explain what he's even talking about. But before she can get an answer, a huge explosion rocks the building. She nearly loses her balance as the sound of breaking wood and stone fills the air. Looking back, she hears someone scream that the shed in the courtyard just blew up. Alicia's face goes completely pale as she tries to process the chaos, while further out in the western Cyan region of the territory, things are just as bad. A group of adventurers is getting swarmed by giant monsters again, and the leader of the Red Eagle party is already fed up. He grips his sword, wishing they had some monster-repellent potion to deal with this mess, but he knows even if they had some, it wouldn't be strong enough for the things living in the Great Forest. It's a losing battle because the only stuff you can buy in town is low-rank garbage. It's barely worth using against real threats, and that realization has the whole team feeling pretty hopeless. He keeps dreaming about finding some high-rank repellent, while the rest of the crew struggles to move their gear through the woods, thinking that maybe then their investigation of the Great Forest would actually make some progress. The blonde adventurer looks exhausted, as he admits that any apothecary capable of making something that powerful would have been snatched up by a big guild or a noble years ago. Alicia watches in total horror as the fire spreads, crying out that her laboratory is being destroyed while her father's voice cuts through the air. He tells her it was never her lab and he's just clearing trash off his land, and looking at the ground, Alicia asks why he'd do something so cruel, checking the ashes for anything she can save while the Count asks if she still doesn't get it. He leans out the window and starts yelling, reminding her that he's Thomas Bromias, the lord of this entire domain, and Alicia can only stare back at him, completely speechless as her father continues his angry rant. He goes on about his own greatness, bragging that he's the one who turned this empty wasteland into a thriving city. But that's not all, because he brings up his time in the Northern War, claiming the territory was a reward for his legendary service. He looks down on her, saying the real issue is that she simply isn't worthy of being his daughter anymore. He points out that her older sister Merida is a proper lady who spends her time at high society events in the capital. Meanwhile, he feels humiliated because Alicia chooses to lock herself in a shack that stinks like herbs. She tries to defend herself, but he won't even listen. Alicia tries to explain that she was only researching potions, but her father just glares at her with a look of pure disgust. He asks her what use a pile of trash like that is supposed to have. Thomas grabs his head like he's dealing with a massive headache, saying that a woman's worth is totally based on whether she can marry into a famous family. He doesn't care about her work, and he keeps going, calling her a failure for playing with a useless skill instead of doing her noble duties. Alicia can only stand there as he tells her she isn't needed in his house anymore, and he yells for her to get out of his territory right now. She runs through the gates, apologizing to her mom in heaven. Hold up. Smash like and subscribe for more hidden manga gems. Now, I dare you to comment, I'm loving it. I bet most of you won't do it. Alright, let's continue. Walking through the city streets, Alicia realizes she's going to have her hands full just taking care of herself. She looks pretty down about leaving her research gear behind, but tells her potions to wait for her because she's not giving up. She vows to keep making potions until the whole world sees how amazing they really are. Alicia stomps through the streets with a serious look on her face. She's determined to make her father, or Lord Thomas as she calls him now, regret the day he kicked her out. But then she trips over her own feet and faceplants right in the middle of the road. A little kid nearby points it out to his mom, laughing about how she just fell over nothing. The mom tries to be polite, telling her son that it isn't nice to laugh at people just because they aren't very coordinated. Alicia picks herself up, looking pretty embarrassed as she reminds herself that you don't actually need to be athletic to be a great potion maker. She figures she just needs to buy some new tools and ingredients. After all, she's saved up a decent amount of cash from selling her work over the years. She heads over to the bank to grab her funds, But she gets the shock of her life when she finds out her account is totally empty and the guy behind the counter just nods and confirms the bad news, leaving her standing there in total shock. Turns out her older sister Merida has been using a power of attorney to drain the account with regular withdrawals this whole time. The teller looks at her like she's crazy, asking if she seriously hasn't bothered to check her own balance once until today. Alicia can't even process it and just loses her mind screaming. Meanwhile, the story moves over to the Skrull Trading Company building. Erika Skrull stands there looking completely blown away by the news. She yells, asking if Alicia seriously lost her lab to a fire, got kicked out of her home, and found her bank account totally empty on top of everything. She asks if all that potion money they paid her over the years is really gone, and Alicia just slumps over the table, quietly confirming that it's all finished. Alicia looks completely dead inside, realizing her family hated her way more than she ever imagined. Erika watches her, noting that she must be in deep shock even if it's hard to tell from her blank face. But then Erika reaches out and grabs Alicia's hand, telling her not to let the depression win. She gives her a look and says that her potion-making skills are actually incredible. It would be a total waste for the whole world if a talent like hers ended up dying in some ditch, so Alicia looks up, totally caught off guard by the nice words. She asks what's wrong with Erika, since she's usually got a huge mouth and never says anything nice like that. Erika doesn't take the comment well and snaps back, telling Alicia she'll smack her around for calling her out, especially since she's just a penniless bum now. She gets back to business though, pointing out that Alicia has literally nowhere else to go, so she should just come work as their exclusive potion maker. Alicia just sits there for a second, repeating the idea back to her while Erika waits for an answer. Erika reminds her that she's a branch manager for the biggest trading company in the whole kingdom, so she definitely has the power to make a deal like that happen right now. Erika keeps up the sales pitch, telling Alicia she can build her a high-tech workshop in a totally different area so she can keep her research going in the best possible spot. But she doesn't stop there, offering her unlimited mana water and all the supplies or research papers she could ever need. She leans in, asking Alicia what she thinks of the deal, and honestly, she's feeling pretty good about herself, saying this kind of move is exactly what people expect from a go-getter like her. It's a win-win that saves Alicia and makes the company money, so Alicia looks at her friend and admits Erika is actually amazing. Even though they're both only 16, Erika is already using her skills to make a real difference in the world. But then Alicia gets a serious look on her face. She tells Erika that while the studio idea sounds great, she's going to have to pass on the offer, which completely throws Erika for a loop. She can't believe Alicia is saying no and demands to know what her plan is for the future if she's turning down a setup like this. But Alicia just stays calm as they sit for tea. She explains that even though a lot of crazy stuff happened that she never saw coming, being out on her own has finally made her realize one thing, and she clenches her fists as she says it. She wants to see if she can actually make it on her own strength, just like Erika did for herself, because she's learned the hard way that anything built using someone else's power can be snatched away just as fast as it was given. Looking back at her old life, she decides right then and there that she's only going to make potions in a place she built with her own 2 hands. Alicia gives a quiet, meaningful look as she settles on her choice to move forward, and seeing that she's serious, Erika says she'll respect the decision. She rings a little bell to call for her staff while letting the news sink in, but she doesn't waste any time asking Alicia what her actual plan is for the future. As the butler arrives in the back, Alicia points out a spot on the map, explaining there's a town in the next territory right by a huge forest with all the materials she needs. She says the plan is to just make and sell potions there, which makes Erika realize just how much Alicia loves her work. Before she leaves, Erika reaches out and hands over a small box, telling her friend to take it, which is how Alicia ends up sitting in the back of a moving wagon, staring at the silver bracelet Erika gave her as a parting gift. It turns out it's actually a magic tool that can hide a person's real skills from the world. And Erika explained that people with appraisal powers can see right through her stats, so she needs to keep it on to avoid any drama. She even got right in Alicia's face about it, making her promise to never take the thing off no matter what. Alicia remembers Erika's warning about how people back home are polite enough not to use appraisal skills on others, but that once she crosses the border, all bets are off and people might try to snoop on her stats. Alicia thinks the whole thing is a little dramatic, considering her status is pretty basic. She's just an F-rank villager whose only real talent is the concoct skill. It's a straightforward ability that lets her pull magical properties out of herbs or plants and move them into water, basically the perfect tool for making potions. She knows the skill isn't exactly rare, but she's confident she's better at using it than most people, and she can't help but smile thinking about how Erika forced her to take a ton of travel money, even calling it chump change just to be nice. Alicia realizes her friend just has a blunt way of speaking, but actually has a huge heart, But her peaceful thoughts are cut short as the carriage driver spots something weird on the path ahead. He pulls on the reins and starts to slow down, and his face goes totally pale when he realizes exactly what's waiting for them in the middle of the road. Suddenly, a voice screams for the driver to get down, leaving Alicia completely confused as the situation turns south. Everything goes sideways in a second. The carriage hits something hard, sending Alicia and the supplies flying everywhere while she tries to process how fast things are happening. Outside, the guard is already in position, and she can't believe anyone could react that quickly to an ambush. Alicia stays low inside the carriage as the guard yells out that hiring him for extra security was definitely the right move. But then the real threat shows up. A massive rock lizard lunges out of nowhere, and the guard charges straight at the roaring monster to keep it back while Alicia hides behind the carriage wall. She realizes they'd be dead if Erika hadn't forced her to hire professional, especially as the guard finishes the fight, though the victory is short-lived. Alicia hears a panicked cry from the front of the carriage and peeks out to see what happened, finding the driver looking completely broken. She asks him what's wrong, and the guy just starts apologizing through his tears because it turns out the horse is in bad shape. Its leg got wrecked during the monster's attack, and it's just lying there in the dirt, leaving the driver a total mess. He starts losing it, crying about how the horse was his partner and they'd been together forever, but then Alicia walks up and interrupts his grieving. She says she's sorry to bother him but asks if she can get some water, leaving the guy totally confused. Back in the city, the branch manager's assistant is completely losing it. He can't believe what Erika just told him. Erika doesn't blink, repeating that her company is pulling out of the Promea's territory for good. The guy panics, saying this is way too sudden and demanding to know why she'd do something so crazy, but she just asks if the reason isn't obvious. She looks out over the city and drops a bomb. She says that in the very near future, this whole place is going to be destroyed. The truth is, this territory hasn't stayed peaceful because of the Lord's leadership or anything like that. It was all Alicia's work behind the scenes. Meanwhile, back at the carriage, the driver is freaking out because Alicia just said she's going to whip up a potion. She pulls out a special healing herb, the very last one she saved from her burnt-down lab, and says she's putting it to use. Alicia knows that a wound this deep usually needs a super high-grade item to even have a chance at healing. See, skills are ranked in 6 different levels based on how good you are. Level 1 is just starting out, while levels 2 through 4 cover the intermediate and advanced stuff. But once you hit level 5 or higher, you're looking at masterclass territory that only the best of the best ever reach. The secret behind Alicia's success is finally out. It all comes down to her unique skill, which is actually Synthesis X. She calls out the command to start the process, and then the story flashes back to the ruined Promea's land that was once crawling with monsters. Turns out she single-handedly kept everyone safe by making a special monster repellent potion, and that made her the owner of the only skill of its kind on the entire continent. Erika's still worried though, saying Alicia doesn't realize how big this is or how dangerous things could get if the wrong people find out. Just thinking about the potential fallout is terrifying to her. Back on the road, the driver points toward the horizon and says he can see the city of Torid. Alicia's eyes light up when she hears that, remembering it's the town right next to the Great Forest. She starts laughing with joy, telling the driver she's going to find so many high-quality ingredients there. The assistant looks at the potion and says he's honestly surprised anyone would try to open a shop with such low skills. And he points out that things are even worse because, for some reason, they've completely run out of ingredients just as a potion bottle hits the floor and shatters, making Alicia freak out. The assistant adjusts his glasses with a smug look and tells her that dealing with potions in a city like Torid is a lot more complicated than she thinks, asking if she even understands the mess she's getting into. Meanwhile, out in the field, the blonde adventurer from the Red Eagle party finishes off a monster and decides it's time to head back, telling his group that they're finally returning to the city of Torid. But things go south fast as he realizes he's already surrounded by more monsters, and he loses his cool, yelling about how much he needs to find a monster repellent potion that actually works. Back in the city, people are already talking about how crazy it is that someone can make a potion that heals deep wounds instantly. The carriage driver looks at Alicia with total respect, asking if she's got some kind of crazy high-level skills, but Alicia just gets all nervous and waves her hands, telling him she's honestly just a potion researcher. The guy looks at the bottle and sees it's only a rank 3 potion with okay effects. So Alicia admits it's pretty weak, thinking to herself that without her real tools or magic water, she's stuck making stuff that can't even fix a broken bone. She decides she needs to head out and buy some actual supplies first. But the driver interrupts her, holding out a bag and telling her that even though it isn't much of a reward, he really wants her to take it. He explains that it's a magic tool she'll find useful, which catches Alicia off guard since she didn't realize it was special. as he shows her how storage magic is woven into the bag, pulling out way more stuff than should fit inside. He explains that it doesn't just hold a ton, it also makes everything inside feel super light for the person carrying it, which makes Alicia freak out even more, telling him she can't possibly accept something that's this useful. Alicia tries to hand the magic bag back, but the driver won't hear it. He insists she saved his horse and his life, and that potion she gave him was way more valuable than she thinks. He decides the bag still isn't enough, so he pulls out a town map and a list of the best places to stay, while his horse helpfully holds the map out for her to take. Alicia stands on the side of the road with her new gear, watching as the carriage finally rattles away into the distance. She's still a little stunned, thinking it's wild that the guy was so hyped over a basic rank 3 potion, and she can't help but feel like the driver was just way too nice to her. She shakes it off and looks at the map, promising herself she'll make the most of it and get moving. A bit later, she finds her way into a dim, cluttered shop where a creepy-looking lady welcomes her from behind a counter. The old woman asks what she's looking for while Alicia takes in the weird vibes of the place. Looking around the shelves, Alicia is actually pretty impressed by all the potion supplies, seeing jars with weird hands and professional mortars and pestles. The shopkeeper tells her to check the back shelf if she needs those tools, so Alicia heads off to start her shopping. Alicia stops dead in her tracks, looking at something on the shelf and realizing she's in trouble. She tries to stay focused, telling herself that the money Erika gave her won't last forever and she needs to be smart, while the shopkeeper watches her like a hawk from the shadows. Right there in front of her is a legendary adamantite mortar and pestle, but the price tag is a total nightmare, sitting at nearly 10 million. Her eyes light up just thinking about it, knowing that adamantite is the strongest material in the entire world. And with a tool like that, she could handle any dangerous ingredient without ever worrying about it breaking. The old shopkeeper notices her staring and asks if she's actually thinking about buying it, while Alicia reaches up to grab the heavy bowl. She starts sweating, thinking about how badly she needs it even though the price is basically a bad joke she can't afford. Then the old lady drops a bombshell, asking if Alicia could afford it if she knocked the price all the way down to 100,000. Alicia completely loses it, looking at the woman in total shock and asking if she's actually for real. The shopkeeper just laughs and tells her to take it, saying that for a kid with her level of synthesis skills, she's earned a deal like that. The shopkeeper calls Alicia out, saying it's pretty bad manners to use the appraisal skill on things without asking. Alicia starts panicking when the lady warns her that having a skill like Synthesis X is a magnet for trouble. The old woman tells her to relax because she's keeping the secret to herself, mostly because she doesn't want weirdos flocking to her shop. Alicia is stunned that someone saw through her magic bracelet, which is supposed to make her rank look way lower than it actually is. The shopkeeper just grins, mentioning how rare it is to see a customer actually enjoy being in a place like this. She tells Alicia she just felt like giving her the deal was the right move. The lady waves her off, yelling for her to come back soon for another discount while Alicia starts heading out, wondering if she's just having a lucky day. Thinking about how her journey is off to a great start and that Erika definitely worries too much. She remembers her friend calling her a clueless airhead who trusts people way too easily. But Alicia is convinced the world is just full of good people. Now she just has to go find the materials she needs for her work. Alicia is feeling pretty good and starts wondering which potion she should get to work on first, but then she slams right into a guy walking the other way, catching him totally off guard. She feels terrible and immediately starts apologizing, telling him she was just lost in her own head. The guy acts super nice about it though, waving it off and saying the whole thing was actually his fault. As Alicia walks away, the guy's face completely changes as he looks at the money bag he just lifted, laughing at how easy she was to rob. Later on, Alicia gets to her inn and starts patting herself down, wondering where her stuff went. She starts freaking out and dumps everything out of her bag, realizing her wallet is definitely gone. She rushes back out and checks everywhere she's been, from the bakery to the city guards, but nobody has seen it, leaving her totally crushed as the reality sets in that her money is really gone for good. She sits there feeling like a total idiot, finally realizing that Erika was right. The world isn't just full of nice people after all. Alicia sits on the floor realizing she definitely didn't just drop her wallet. It had to be a pickpocket. She's kicking herself for not putting it in her bag after buying snacks, and just then the girl from the inn comes running over to check on her. She sees Alicia looking miserable and asks if she's doing all right, which surprises Alicia since she recognizes her right away. The lady takes one look at her and calls it out immediately. She asks if Alicia ended up losing her wallet. Since it's already getting late, the lady makes her an offer. She says if Alicia helps out with the dishes, she can stay the night, making Alicia tear up as she thanks her. It's a huge relief for her to realize that even though she got robbed, not everyone out there is a bad person. The sun goes down and the inn sits quietly under the stars while everyone settles in, But inside room 203, things are still looking pretty rough. Alicia just lies there on the bed in the dark, staring at the ceiling and wondering how she's supposed to move forward with no money. Alicia is officially flat broke meanwhile. That pickpocket from earlier is off in the distance celebrating with her stolen bag of coins. She thinks about making potions to get some quick cash, but realizes she doesn't even have the starting money to buy the ingredients, so she looks through her stuff and sees the brewing kit in her bag is the only thing she has left to her name. Luckily, the town sits right on the edge of a massive forest that's supposed to be loaded with rare materials. Since she can't afford to buy anything, Alicia decides she's just going to have to go out and harvest the supplies herself. She heads out and finds herself standing right in front of the local adventurers guild, the perfect place to start. The second she walks through the door, Alicia starts feeling way out of her league. The room is filled with massive, scary-looking adventurers. These guys are basically pros who handle everything from hunting down monsters to gathering items in the middle of nowhere. And the guild is the spot that manages all their jobs and keeps everything running smoothly. Alicia remembers the landlady saying the guild gives out all kinds of useful info to members, so she figures this is her best shot. Alicia thinks registration will be a breeze and a great way to find where the magical plants are. She walks up to the counter, and a cheerful receptionist greets her. The girl behind the desk gives a wink and asks how she can help her out today. Alicia tells her she wants to sign up to be an adventurer, so the receptionist asks if she's there for registration. Suddenly the mood shifts. The receptionist gets this intense look and asks Alicia what her actual motivation is for joining up. Alicia explains she wants to learn where the magical plants grow in the Great Forest, which makes the receptionist realize she's just looking to gather supplies. The receptionist starts thinking to herself that even though anyone can technically join, she might need to do a little interview since Alicia looks so nervous. Turns out there's been a huge wave of kids trying to join the guild just to get close to the S-rank party, Red Eagle. Those guys are basically like idols. The receptionist gets right in her face and says the guild is tired of people taking jobs with such a half-hearted attitude. She slams her hand down on the desk and yells that anyone who isn't serious about the work will be kicked out. While flipping through a huge book, she warns Alicia that even a simple job like picking plants can get pretty dangerous. The receptionist holds up a map of where all the magical plants are located and tells Alicia she needs to take a good look at it, because even the fireweed plants closest to the town aren't safe. Turns out, there are killer bee nests all over that area. She explains that while one bee isn't a big deal by itself, the real problem is the sheer number of them and the fact that their poison is incredibly strong. Because it's so dangerous, most adventurers stay far away, which has sent the price of fire grass through the roof. Alicia realizes her plan of just gathering plants is way more intense than she thought. Alicia gets a sudden look of realization and asks if the guild actually buys those magical plants from adventurers too. The receptionist is totally thrown off. She can't believe that's the one detail Alicia decided to focus on. She tells her that they definitely do, along with monster parts, ores, and pretty much any materials they can find. And Alicia gets this little sparkle in her eye. She's convinced she just received some of the best advice ever. She dives right into the map, asking the receptionist to point out exactly where all the plant life is clustered near the forest entrance. The receptionist watches Alicia study the map and mentions she really has her doubts about this. But she can't help but ask if Alicia is actually planning on heading out there to gather flame grass by herself. She tries to warn her that killer bees are no joke and are seriously dangerous monsters, especially since their poison is incredibly strong. But Alicia just rests her hand on the counter and says she'll be fine. She gives a confident little smile and tells the receptionist she's sure things will work out somehow, which leaves the poor woman looking totally stressed out. She can't even believe Alicia is being this casual. Alicia explains she originally planned to just sell potions, but was worried about finding a buyer, so now she just wants to know the procedure. She starts signing the papers, thinking about how this is the best way to earn back the money she spent to get started, while the receptionist hands over her new adventurer's card and tells her to finish up the rest of the paperwork. Alicia finally makes it to the edge of the woods. She stands before a massive tree and realizes she's actually there. Alicia stares up at the massive trees. She asks herself if this is really the Great Forest of Fours, and the place is creepy. Weird noises and old bones are everywhere. Making matters worse is the sign at the entrance. It says the guild won't take any responsibility for what happened. She's definitely shaking, but she tries to stay positive and tells herself that everything should be fine. Alicia focuses on her training. She knows the research she did was incredibly detailed, which means she has every little bit of info about these woods totally memorized. Back in the city, the locals are all talking about how they need to thank the people who did the hard work investigating the area. Everyone stops to look as the Red Eagle party walks by. They figure the group just got back from the Great Forest. One guy wonders if they're heading straight to the guild to drop off their report, but things are getting crazy elsewhere. Over at the Skrull Trading Company workshop, Erika just found out the news and yells about Alicia being exiled. Erika isn't messing around. She tells everyone she's moving the whole operation to another branch as soon as the timing is right. Standing in the middle of the lab, she makes it clear she wants every single artisan to start getting ready for the move, but the news hits the crew hard. One of the young guys grumbles about how Alicia just vanished without even saying goodbye. While the head artisans of the Skrull Trading Company are basically falling apart, they can't believe what's happening to Alicia. The big guy asks what's going to happen to the Prometheus territory now, while the older man next to him just curses out the stupid lord. Without Alicia, they're in deep trouble. Even with all their fancy gear and mana water, they can only make rank 2 monster repellent, and everyone knows that's not enough. Eventually, they won't be able to keep the monsters inside the borders under control anymore. Erika steps up and tells them that's exactly why they're bailing on the domain. She knows they can't stay here, and she makes it clear that their safety is the top priority if they ever plan on coming back to save this place later. The whole room just stares at her with total respect. They're all in on the plan, ready to follow her anywhere. Erika tells the crew to get moving if they understand the plan, and everyone shouts back in agreement, though the head artisan can't stop grumbling about how that idiot lord messed up by kicking Alicia out. He's definitely going to regret letting her go, and Erika knows it. She just stands there with a smug look on her face like she's got everything under control. She figures that with Alicia's talent, the girl is probably already out there somewhere getting a permit to sell her own potions right now. Back in the woods, the ground is covered in dewdrops, little plants Alicia needs for her work. And she's out there putting in the hours, wiping sweat off her head while she gathers everything up at a steady pace. She finds plenty of mist-spitting mushrooms near some old logs, keeping her focus on the task since the real prize for the day is flame grass, because the guild is paying a ton of money for it lately. The problem is there's a fresh, killer beehive right where the grass grows. Giant bees are everywhere, making the area a total death trap. To deal with that, she's going to need a solid batch of monster repellent potion before she even thinks about getting closer. She sits down to check her haul, realizing that even though she's far from home, all the plants are exactly where the old data said they'd be. Alicia checks her map and figures things will be totally fine as long as she stays away from the spots where monsters usually hang out. So she spots a plant nearby and thinks it looks like it'll be pretty easy to pick. It's a patch of healing grass, exactly what she needs. She knows it's not for the repellent, but she decides to grab some anyway while she's at it. She spends the next while humming to herself and moving from spot to spot, gathering everything she sees. Finally, she finds it. The Yorazu grass she was looking for is right there in front of her, and she's all smiles knowing she can finally make the monster repellent. But then she hears a weird sound. Out in the clearing, a small goblin is just standing there making a ton of noise. Alicia spots it from the trees and her heart nearly stops. She's staring right at a monster and completely starts to freak out. She hides her face, realizing she messed up big time by getting so distracted with her plants that she walked straight into a dangerous zone. Alicia watches the tiny creature, thinking that even if it's just a child, there's no way she could take it on. The goblin just plays with a butterfly while Alicia stays flat on the ground, chanting to herself that she's just a patch of grass. Once the coast is clear, she looks out at the mountains and admits that was way too scary, but she's still shaken up on the ground, saying she honestly thought she was a goner right there. She quickly bounces back though, feeling pretty proud of how well her research helped her act like a literal plant. After the initial scare wears off, she gets a second wind and realizes she finally has everything she needs, so she gets a determined look on her face and decides it's finally time to start mixing the ingredients. She knows that making a top-tier potion usually comes down to 4 main things. It's all about the quality of the magic plants and the water, how well you prep everything, and your actual skill level. Even with a crazy X skill, she knows she won't get high-rank results unless every single one of those boxes is checked. Alicia gets to work, noting that how you process the plants is just as important as finding them. She starts by washing the leaves she picked out, making sure they're clean before moving on to ripping them up into tiny pieces by hand, dropping them one by one into her bowl while realizing that to really extract the components, she needs to grind them down with a mortar and pestle. As she feels the plant being crushed under the weight, she gets hit with a wave of nostalgia, remembering how back when she first started with the trading company, she spent all her money on fancy magic tools, meaning it's been a really long time since she actually had to prep everything manually like this. But she's actually having a great time, smiling to herself while she works through the ingredient. Next, she needs to get the water sac out of a mushroom. But then she hits a snag. She completely forgot to bring any cutting tools, so she has to use a sharp rock to get the job done, laughing at herself for leaving out such a basic thing as a knife. Alicia focuses everything she's got into the vial, calling out for the synthesis to start. And it works. She holds up the finished product and shouts that it's finally done. It's a level 3 monster repellent, but looking at it, she sees it's only plate rank. She figures the way she prepped those mushrooms messed things up. And on top of that, there's another issue she's worried about while looking at the nearby stream. The guild info said the water here is clean enough for people to drink. But that doesn't help her much because to get the quality she really wants, she's going to need actual magic water from somewhere else. She stares at the bottle, still a little bummed out that she couldn't get it past plate rank, but she just has to hope that this batch is going to be good enough for what she needs. The forest gets a lot more dangerous as a swarm of giant hornets buzzes around a massive nest, leaving Alicia hiding in the bushes, terrified while she watches the killer wasps patrol the area. Alicia hides in the bushes, staring at the giant hornets. She thinks that forget the poison, getting stabbed by a stinger that huge would probably kill her instantly. She looks down at her vial, reminding herself that she doesn't actually have to drink the stuff. Usually just popping the cork and holding it is enough for it to work, but she's worried about tripping and dropping the bottle. She decides it's safer to smear it on her skin and move in slowly bit by bit. She holds the bottle steady and carefully pulls the cork out. Suddenly, the massive hornets start buzzing around like crazy. Alicia watches them, completely frozen with shock as they swarm the air. Meanwhile, back at the guild, a loud voice echoes through the building. Someone is yelling about everything being sold out again. The receptionist tries to calm down the blonde adventurer and the Red Eagle party. She explains that the Skrull company has a monopoly on monster repellent, so it's always in short supply. She tells them the recipe is a complete secret, meaning there's no way to get it from any other source. The blonde adventurer complains about how unfriendly that kind of business is. His friend just shrugs it off, saying it's normal to hide technology just like magic. And as the group heads out, the guy mentions that at least the receptionist was cute, while his party members just follow him out looking tired. The headband guy from the Red Eagle party wonders why his friends spent so much time talking, especially since they could have just gone home after finishing their report. As the group stands around the guild hall, Alicia walks right past them, catching their attention as she heads out. The headband guy is totally floored by her, asking his buddies if they saw her, and saying she was seriously cute. The guy with glasses just pushes them up and notes that he has never seen her around the area before. The headband guy tries to call out to Org, their party leader, but the dude is already halfway across the street. The guys just shrug it off, saying Org is way too stoic, but that's expected from a powerhouse who took down an ancient dragon. Org keeps walking while some local girls swoon over him, but he's just thinking about how everyone has something they're weak to. Meanwhile, inside a local shop, a massive pile of rare herbs gets dumped onto the counter, leaving the staff completely speechless. The female clerk is shaking as she stares at the pile, asking if this is actually a huge stash of fire grass. The shopkeeper is still pretty skeptical and asks if it's real, so Alicia just stands there and confirms that it's the real deal. The shop manager finishes checking the herbs and tells everyone they're definitely the real deal, which makes the assistant completely lose it. The girl starts panicking and asks Alicia how she even got them, especially since that place is supposed to be crawling with killer bees. Alicia just tells her to pipe down and stay quiet while the shop staff stands there in total shock. So she pulls out a bottle and explains that since she's an apothecary, she just whipped up some monster repellent for the trip. The manager and the assistant just stare at the bottle looking like they've seen a ghost. Alicia thinks about how she wasn't 100% sure it would work in such a high-rank area, but she's just glad it did, leaving the staff speechless. Then the two of them lean over the counter and yell, asking if she really made that monster repellent herself. They can't believe it because that's a top-secret item only the Scholar Guild is supposed to know how to make. Alicia starts breaking a sweat as it finally clicks. She might have said way too much, and then she remembers that she was actually the one who let the Scholar Guild take all the credit for coming up with it. Alicia thinks back to how she only made the monster repellent so she could focus on her research, but Erika is losing it while holding the bottle, telling her a recipe. This good lets her charge whatever she wants, and she needs to keep it a secret. Erika can't believe Alicia would actually choose doing research over making a ton of money through negotiation. Alicia starts sweating, thinking that as long as nobody finds out she's the one who actually made it, everything should be fine. She tries to play it off by telling the shop staff she just really loves the Scholar Guild's potions and learned how to make her own. The manager and his assistant are completely floored, realizing they've just run into a total genius alchemist. The manager looks pretty intense and asks if he can appraise the potion right now, and he follows up by saying if the stuff is actually legit, he wants her to sell it to his shop. At first, Alicia says she doesn't mind, but then she catches herself and shuts the deal down, because she realizes she used to let Erika handle everything while she hid in her lab, but now she's decided to run her own life. Alicia steps up and tells them she'll handle the negotiations herself, but it's going to depend on the price they offer. Secretly, she's a bit nervous and figures it probably won't go for much since it's just a low-rank item. The shop staff starts shaking in shock, and Alicia realizes that what she made is actually the real deal. Or rather, the manager starts yelling that it's actually monster repellent level 3, which explains why it worked so well on those killer bees. His assistant is losing her mind too, saying she's never even seen anything level 2 or higher before today. She quickly pulls out a reference book to double-check, confirming that this stuff is definitely the high-end level 3 version. Looking at the book's value guide, she can't believe the kind of money a potion like this usually goes for. Alicia slams her head onto the counter in total shock, asking if it's really worth that much, while the assistant explains the massive demand. It turns out even pro-adventurers who spend their lives hunting monsters rely on this stuff to stay alive, because the assistant points out that plenty of hunters get killed by random beasts when they're headed home exhausted after a big raid. The shop assistant is getting all emotional, saying that if they have this potion, those terrible accidents will finally stop happening. The manager looks just as desperate, practically begging Alicia to please sell the batch to him right now. Alicia flashes back to her father's angry voice, remembering how he called her a failure who just played around with a useless pharmacy skill. She isn't really sure if this is the right way to handle a professional business deal, but seeing how much they care changes her mind. If her potions can actually help people and be useful, then she tells them she's actually the one who should be begging them to take the supply off her hands. The manager and his assistant are both glowing with pure joy after hearing her say that. They both scream out a huge thank you that probably carries all the way down the street. Later, Alicia walks through the city feeling a bit better, even if the cash doesn't totally make up for her stolen wallet. She realizes the money from selling the flame grass should at least keep them going and cover their basic living costs for a while. Alicia clenches her fist with a new sense of hope. She's finally managed to find a buyer for her potions, and knowing that, she feels like she can actually survive on her own for a while with the money she's making. She stands in the middle of the busy street with her arm raised, a bit of a weird moment that makes her realize how lonely it actually is to be by herself at a time like this. As she looks out at the quiet forest at night, she thinks having someone to talk to would really put her at ease while out in the dark. A massive creature with glowing eyes moves through the water. But for now, Alicia is just focused on finishing her work, wiping her forehead while hoping the batch of potions she finished is enough. It's already been 10 days since she first arrived in the town of Torid. She heads to the front desk to pay for her room, even giving the lady a potion as an extra thank you, and the lady at the inn just smiles while cleaning the counter, telling Alicia she really appreciates the help as always. Things have been pretty rough lately, but Alicia feels like her life is finally starting to stabilize. When she stops by the guild, the receptionist asks if she's back again today, and Alicia just says yes while thinking about her next goal, since the guild is currently busy trying to raise money to upgrade their place. Inside the guild hall, some guy spots someone at the door and tells his buddies that the person is here, and everyone starts whispering about how the famous, green-haired potion seller has finally shown up. The atmosphere gets tense as one adventurer tells the guy next to him not to try and cut in line, but the other guy just tells him the same thing, making Alicia feel a weird amount of pressure from the crowd. She makes it to the counter where the shop assistant says hi and asks if she's got more potions to sell. And before Alicia can even answer, the assistant grabs a megaphone to announce the new stock is ready. The whole room goes nuts. Adventurers start yelling that they're home from their quests and begging her to sell them a potion right now. The shop assistant mentions that Alicia is popular as ever, and while Alicia agrees, she secretly thinks the whole scene is pretty terrifying. It turns out the standard rank 2 monster repellents from the trading company just weren't strong enough to handle the creatures in the Great Forest, so the high-rank stuff Alicia was making wasn't even for sale to the public. It was actually reserved specifically for the defense of the territory. Because of that, the special repellent is something that only exists within the Promia's borders, making it part of a deal where Alicia shared her recipe, so the Skrull Trading Company could distribute it across the land. Most of the potions people find on the market are just standard versions produced by guild craftsmen using that same recipe. Alicia stops to think about how wild it is that there's such a massive demand for her work, even this far outside her home territory. Behind her, the crowd loses it when they hear everything is already sold out, but the assistant just ignores the noise and checks in on Alicia. She asks Alicia what her plans are for the rest of the day, now that the business at the counter is finished. Alicia says she's thinking of checking out the Spirit Spring, since she saw it on a map of the forest a while back. The shop assistant asks Alicia if she's planning to head out and gather some magical plants, offering to just give her the ingredients if she needs them. But Alicia is more interested in the Spirit Spring itself, asking the girl if the water there is actually filled with magic power. The assistant confirms that it is, though she admits the quality of the magic in that specific water isn't anything special, which leads into Alicia explaining her plan, saying she was thinking about how that water might be the perfect base for brewing new potions. She goes on to describe how magical water is one of the most important ingredients when it comes to crafting high-end items, because the water is naturally packed with energy, making any potion made with it way more powerful than the stuff made with normal water. Alicia starts getting pumped up, realizing that if she can boost the quality of her products, raising money for her journey will be a breeze. She even thinks ahead to when they have a proper lab set up. Once they do, they can start churning out monster repellents for the whole region too. The shop assistant tells her the Spirit Spring is actually a pretty chill spot. It's so safe that local kids even go there for gathering quests to test their guts. Since it's close to town and not very dangerous, it seems like a solid plan, but the assistant stops for a second like there's something else Alicia should know. The shop assistant mentions there are some pretty weird rumors about the spring, and the sun shines down through the quiet trees as the journey begins. Alicia realizes it's been a minute since she's been out here. She figures she might as well grab some materials while heading through the forest. She stops to look at a leaf, but she can't stop thinking about how sketchy those rumors sounded. The story behind the Spring of Spirits name starts weighing on her mind because the assistant told her some adventurers claim to see a massive dragon head popping out of the water. Ever since that sighting, everyone in town started saying real spirits moved into the area. The girl at the shop just laughed it off as a simple rumor, but Alicia isn't feeling nearly as relaxed about it. She wonders if they're just mistaking a dangerous dragon monster for a spirit, and decides right then that if things look even a little bit risky, she's turning around and heading straight back. Alicia finally makes it to the lake and just stands there for a second. The view is huge, and she starts losing it over all the rare magical plants growing along the shore. Her eyes are literally sparkling because she has to remind herself to stay focused. She tells herself the spring water is the main goal, but then sudden shouting from nearby catches her attention. Someone is yelling in pain, and she turns to see a group of people causing a scene. She hides behind a tree to get a better look while someone yells to knock it off, and it turns out a bunch of kids are straight up kicking a small turtle on the ground. The turtle actually talks back, asking if they even know who it is, but Alicia just stares at the whole mess in total confusion. She can't wrap her head around what she's seeing, and the weirdest part to her is that the turtle is actually speaking human language. She's stuck there wondering how that's even possible while one of the boys just laughs at the creature. He tells the turtle to try fighting back if it doesn't like being kicked, and the other kid chimes in, saying they aren't scared of a little yelling. They just keep bullying the poor thing right there on the sand. The mean kid keeps yelling at the poor creature, telling it to just hide in its shell and stay put like a normal turtle should, making Alicia watch from the side while the boys continue their bullying, wondering why they're even bothering with a turtle in the first place. The turtle actually notices her and calls out, saying she showed up just in time and begging for her to please help him out. So Alicia gets caught watching and lets out a nervous sound while one of the boys turns and yells, demanding to know who she is. The kid gets aggressive immediately, shouting at her that this area is their turf and she's not welcome there, and then he even throws a rock at her and tells her to get lost, making Alicia realize she's just dealing with a bunch of rowdy, rude kids. She thinks to herself that she really has to save the turtle now, so she steps forward and tells the boys it would be wise to stop, but she starts giving them a whole lecture, explaining how hurting living things messes up the forest ecosystem and ruins the medicinal herbs. One kid just looks confused while the others start mocking her, making it clear they aren't about to listen to some boring lecture, and Alicia just sighs to herself, realizing that just giving them a verbal warning wasn't ever going to be enough to make them stop. Since the boys aren't listening to reason, Alicia decides she's going to have to use a little force. She pulls some specific leaves out of her bag with a confident look on her face, but the kids aren't impressed at all, mocking her for just holding some grass and claiming they aren't scared of her. The lead bully tells her to get lost and calls her a weed woman, which really gets under Alicia's skin. She starts rubbing the leaves together and explains that this plant is actually called Stinkweed. It's a magical plant used for making potions, and while it looks like normal grass, it's got a secret. As she keeps rubbing the leaves, a dark cloud of smell hits the kids and they immediately start gagging. The boys lose it and scream about how bad the odor is, feeling like they're gonna pass out from the stench. Alicia just stands there totally fine, explaining that she's used to the smell, but it's probably too much for them. The kids finally give up and run away as fast as they can, yelling that she'll regret this while they disappear into the forest. The turtle is completely out of it from the stench and asks what that smell even is. Alicia just watches him, thinking it's good to know the stinkweed works on turtles too. Still feeling a bit sick, the turtle says he isn't sure if he should be thanking her for the rescue or not. He asks the human girl what her name is, Alicia keeps it simple and tells him her name is Alicia, while the little guy tries to pull himself together. He tells her he'll give her a proper thank you now that he knows her name. It turns out he's actually the guardian spirit of the lake, which surprises Alicia quite a bit. She asks if he's really a spirit and the turtle just nods, confirming that he is. Alicia says that makes sense now. She realizes that being a spirit is why he's able to speak the human language so well, but she's still got some questions. She asks how a spirit ended up getting bullied by a bunch of kids in the first place, since she was always under the impression that spirits were these amazing beings with huge amounts of mana. The turtle looks pretty down as he listens to her. He sighs and tells her that it's a really complicated situation, and he starts to explain what went wrong. He looks off into the distance, saying everything started just a few days ago. The turtle starts his story by thinking back to a nice day when he was just chilling on his back, soaking up the sun like usual, until a couple of local kids show up and start crowding around him. They wonder what the deal is with this turtle, especially since he's holding onto something weird. He looks pretty devastated as he explains that those kids took his jewel. It's not just some rock either, it's a crystal he made out of his own magic, and they just tossed it away, so that was the start of a total nightmare for him. Alicia realizes that without his magic, the poor guy is basically a sitting duck with no way to defend himself. Alicia can't help but ask why he'd even bother turning his magic into a crystal in the first place. It seems like a huge risk, especially if someone ends up stealing it, but the turtle tells her he doesn't really have a choice. If he doesn't hide his power, he'd draw way too much attention to himself every time he leaves the water, and he lets her know that his actual form looks way different than this tiny body. A flashback shows a massive shadow in the lake looking like a total monster. He admits that one time he accidentally let his head pop out of the spring. It didn't go well, since he ended up scaring the life out of some guy walking by. Alicia gets a funny look on her face as the dots start connecting. She says that story sounds super familiar, finally realizing that he's the monster everyone was talking about. So while they sit by the water, Alicia suggests a simple fix. She asks why they don't just go find the orb, since the kids just threw it right back into the spring. The turtle spirit sadly tells Alicia that he can't get it himself. Alicia looks pretty confused and asks him why that is, but he explains that the jewel ended up getting stuck deep in the cracks of the rocks. He's totally stuck and asks Alicia if she would be willing to go down there and get it for him. Alicia looks completely shocked by the request, since she has to admit that she's actually not a very good swimmer at all. She starts getting nervous, but the turtle won't give up. He swears on the name of the spirits that he'll make it worth her, while promising that he'll give her all the amazing magic water she could ever want. Hearing about a reward like that changes things, and Alicia gets a serious look on her face. She tells him to just consider it a twist of fate and to leave everything to her, so she starts looking through the nearby bushes. She tells him they need to make a potion first, which just leaves the turtle confused. He asks what she's even talking about and tries to rush her, telling her to stop babbling and just jump in the water, but Alicia ignores him. She knows they'll be fine as long as she can finish making the potion. Alicia asks the turtle spirit exactly how deep this jewel is hidden, but the little guy just tells her it's really not that deep, and he explains that the spot is only about the height of 10 Alicias stacked up on top of each other. Looking totally over it, Alicia tells him he needs to stop applying turtle standards to a normal human like her. She says that since that's how it is, he'll just have to wait a bit, because she has to start preparing so they can actually manage to go underwater. Alicia gets to work right away, looking through some sarin grass nearby and finding some balloon grass to add to her collection. The turtle spirit watches her gather the plants and asks what she even thinks she's doing with a bunch of weeds, so Alicia tells him she's going to compound everything together, making a potion that will let her move around underwater just fine. As she starts mixing the herbs, the turtle spirit just stands there confused, wondering what compounding even is. Alicia starts the process by mincing the sarin grass she gathered, making sure to carefully separate the leaves from the roots without popping the air sacs on the balloon grass, and the turtle spirit is actually pretty impressed, telling her she's got some really nimble hands. Alicia just tells him this is basically all she's ever done with her life, so she holds the jar as it starts to glow, calling out the synthesis command as the mixture turns into a mid-level dive potion that lets someone move around underwater. The turtle spirit says he tried testing the spring water out earlier, and Alicia realizes she's standing in what used to be a garden, deciding their only real hope now is to use the spirit's water. She asks if there are any monsters hiding in the spring, but the turtle spirit says they're all gone, because anytime they try to move in, he beats them to a pulp, making Alicia realize he's still a powerful spirit. Alicia knocks back the potion while the turtle spirit complains about how hot it is. Then she tells him to lead the way, and the two of them dive deep into the water, swimming past schools of fish toward the bottom. The turtle spirit looks back and asks what that weird glowing membrane around her is, So Alicia explains it's just the potion working, and it lets her move around underwater just like she's on land. She mentions the effect only lasts about 15 minutes at this rank, just as the spirit announces they've finally arrived. They reach a massive rock, and the spirit starts getting worried about how they're going to pull this off, but Alicia spots the glowing object inside and sees that it's wedged in there pretty deep. She says she's going to start the retrieval right now and grabs a hold of the stone, straining with everything she's got as she tries to pry it loose from the ground. Seeing her struggle, the turtle spirit starts to panic a little and suggests she should probably head back up soon. Alicia tells the spirit to hang on because she's going to keep trying a bit longer, but she knows time is running out and has to try something else, so she pulls out an adamantite pestle and plans to slip it right under the rock to use as a lever. She tells herself to give it one huge pull and then really leans into it with all her strength. The object finally pops loose and she cheers that she got it, while the spirit stands there totally blown away by her work. But things take a turn when Alicia realizes the potion is wearing off way faster than it was supposed to. So they rush back, and Alicia ends up collapsed on the ground trying to get her breath back. The spirit starts explaining that his true form actually looks a lot different than the little turtle she sees now. He mentions how he accidentally scared some person half to death just by poking his head out of the water. Apparently there are rumors among the adventurers about some scary dragon head showing up on the surface lately. Alicia realizes right then that this is the lead she's been looking for, and she's sure this is the one. Alicia feels this crazy surge of power bubbling up inside her right as water starts exploding everywhere. The spirit's energy is going wild and suddenly he's huge, laughing his head off while Alicia gets launched into the air. She's glad to be out of the water, but the whole situation has her pretty stressed out. The spirit is just hyped to be back to normal, splashing around in the lake while he brags about how this giant dragon-looking form is actually his true self. Alicia is just hanging on for dear life, mentioning that maybe his real form is a bit much. Meanwhile, Org is out in the forest looking cool while he finishes off the last of the local threats. The Red Eagle party stands over a pile of wrecked monsters, finally clearing the area, and the guy with glasses confirms they got everything on the list, leaving the rest of the crew totally exhausted. The Red Eagle party stands over their target, and the guy with glasses says they should hurry back to town, but first, Org steps up and finishes the monster with a massive punch to the face. Back at the lake, things have calmed down a lot, but something more important is happening. Alicia is wringing out her wet clothes while thanking the spirit for saving her from the water. The spirit says it was no big deal, and actually he's just happy she helped him get his true form back. Then he looks at Alicia and tells her it's finally time for the reward he promised, making her stare in total shock as high-grade magical water starts flowing right into her glass jar. She mentions she doesn't even need a special skill to know what she's looking at, since she's made plenty of potions before, and she's never seen anything this high quality. The spirit just laughs and says he's happy she likes it, telling her to take as much as she can carry while she celebrates her lucky find. Alicia is having a blast filling up her jars with the glowing liquid, but as she celebrates her haul, the spirit asks if that's really all she's planning to take. She looks at the small pile of bottles she's already filled and admits she'd love to take more, but she's officially run out of containers. Alicia asks if it would be alright for her to come back for more water another time, but the spirit seems to have a better idea. Without any warning, he spits a glowing jewel right at her, which sends Alicia into a total panic as she tries to catch it. While she's still trying to process what just happened, the spirit casually tells her that he's decided to just go with her, telling her she just needs to keep that jewel safe for him, though Alicia looks pretty unsure if this is actually a good idea. The spirit explains his reasoning, pointing out that she's going to need a constant source of magic water if she wants to keep making her potions. And while Alicia admits that having his help would be great, she still feels like there's a catch. She looks down at the little guy and asks if it's even allowed for a spirit to just wander around traveling with a human, but he just brushes it off, saying this isn't some fairy tale and that, as a spirit, he can tell when someone is worth following. The spirit tells Alicia that she has a really pure heart, noting that she never would have asked for help if she didn't. And as they stand by the water, he admits he's also just bored of being alone at the spring, which Alicia thinks makes sense. He goes on to explain how most people's hearts usually get a bit more tainted as time goes on, but he looks right at her and says that, honestly, the way she is just worries him way too much. The spirit asks her if she ever actually thinks before she acts, making Alicia wonder if he's just mocking her. He confirms he's totally messing with her, but then tells Alicia she should pick out a name for him. Since they're going to be traveling together, he says it's pretty much a requirement, so Alicia starts thinking and she picks him up, holding him high while asking how the name Rand sounds for a start. The little guy absolutely loves it, telling her that the name is wonderful and he's really into it. Alicia says she's glad he likes his new name, and with that settled, the two of them finally head off. Alicia walks through the woods, thinking about how she needs to keep the source of Rand's name a secret. It turns out she actually got it from an old fairy tale about a turtle being bullied by a bunch of kids, and back in the city, a man wearing glasses leans in with a serious look, asking his assistant to repeat what he just said. The assistant explains that there's a person known as the green-haired potion seller who's been making a real name for themselves over at the Adventurers Guild lately. He goes on to say that they apparently managed to create something called Monster Repellent III, which catches the man's attention immediately. The man slams his hands down on his desk, looking thrilled as he calls it wonderful and tells his assistant to go find out exactly who this person is. He starts talking about how a talented person like that really needs to be using their skills for the good of the world and everyone in it by joining their workshop. His assistant looks completely caught off guard, calling out to him as workshop chief Aaron, but then Aaron just gives him a shady look and says he was only kidding. Suddenly his face goes totally dark and greedy. He admits his real plan is to find these talented people, work them to the bone for almost no pay, and use them to make himself a massive fortune. Outside the large workshop building, the assistant is left standing there hoping his boss is actually joking, but meanwhile, Alicia is looking pretty stressed while holding a jar. Rand looks up at her and asks if something is wrong, but she just says it isn't really a problem. The new batch of rank 5 healing potions is finally finished. They're glowing with this crazy intense energy, and Alicia stares at the bottle looking pretty stressed out. She realizes the potion actually turned out way too well for her own good. It turns out Rand's mana water is so strong it boosted the quality by 2 whole levels, which leaves Alicia in a tough spot. She's supposed to be laying low as a rank 4 alchemist, so she can't exactly sell rank 5 stuff without people asking questions. Rand looks at the bottle, admitting he doesn't really get why she's worried, but then he suggests she just dilute the potions with regular water to lower the rank. Alicia's eyes light up. It's the perfect solution to her problem. A little later, she heads back to the inn where a voice calls out her name from the entrance. The place is packed with adventurers. The lady behind the counter spots her and asks if she's brought another delivery of potion. Alicia confirms she has the goods, so the staff member immediately calls out for someone to bring a tray over. The lady is actually pretty surprised to see her back so soon, mentioning she already made a delivery this morning and asking if something came up to require an extra batch. Alicia tries to play it cool, telling the maid it's really not a big deal that she's back so fast. But then Rand pops his head out of her bag. The maid jumps back, yelling about there being a turtle. Alicia quickly covers for him by saying he's just her pet, while Rand just sits there laughing to himself. Rand starts checking the place out, commenting that this must be the famous Adventurers Guild, which makes Alicia freeze up. She's completely thrown off by the fact that Rand's voice is suddenly echoing inside her head. While the maid is busy counting the potion bottles, Rand explains that he's using telepathy and she's the only one who can hear him. He keeps bragging, saying that once she hits his level she can share those blessings too. Alicia can only manage a weak reply. She admits she's terrified of accidentally talking back to him out loud, but Rand tells her she'll get used to it. Just then, the front doors fly open as a man rushes in carrying a wounded friend, screaming for anyone with healing magic to help. The whole room goes quiet for a second. Someone realizes these guys are from the famous Red Eagle Party, and things start getting tense. The guild hall is a mess of noise, and someone nearby asks if something went down as Alicia stands there trying to make sense of the chaos. The maid comes running over to her with a quick apology, while a guy standing at the counter just watches the whole thing unfold. Over by the injured man, the mood gets dark when someone points out that the poor guy has lost his entire right arm. The healer on the scene looks completely defeated, telling everyone he's sorry, but there's just no way to fix an injury that bad. A voice from the crowd shouts out to ask if they've checked with the local healing clinic yet, but one of the adventurers snaps back that they already tried that and it didn't do a thing, which is the only reason they're at the guild. The guy with glasses keeps pushing, insisting that since the injury is fresh there has to be a way to save him, leaving a girl standing nearby looking totally helpless. She just tells him that even if he wants to help, it doesn't change reality. A desperate yell cuts through the room as someone begs for any healer in the building to step up and save the guy's arm. The man looks like he's at the end of his rope, letting out one last plea for someone to do something. The girl from the inn looks completely shocked. She just stares at the scene, saying that something like this should be impossible. Alicia pulls her aside and whispers that she actually knows a way to get her hands on a rank V healing potion. The girl yells out in surprise, but Alicia quickly shushes her. She needs to keep things quiet before the whole room hears. She explains that the person behind the potion hates being noticed, so the source has to stay a total secret, and Alicia makes it clear that the girl can't mention her name to anyone either. She needs to be completely left out of it. The girl nods and says she gets it, mentioning how it would be a massive blow to the guild if Org really lost his arm for good. Moving on, Alicia starts rushing off to get to work while Rand calls out to her to keep the conversation going. As she starts grinding up herbs on top of a barrel, Rand asks her if a potion can actually heal a missing arm. Alicia tells him that whether it's magic or a potion, you can restore limbs as long as the quality is rank V or higher. She keeps working the mortar and pestle, adding that it only works if you use it before too much time passes. The brown-haired guy thanks the group for the help, while the girl in the hood just cries and says she's sorry. Someone in the back is losing it, yelling that they need to move as fast as possible because Rand explains that he can actually change his size whenever he needs to, which makes things a lot easier for Alicia. She looks pretty happy with how everything is working out, so Alicia holds up the ingredients and triggers her synthesis skill, shouting it out as the jar starts to glow. In just a second, she manages to create a rank 5 healing potion with insane power, and she starts sprinting off, telling Rand to just stay put and wait for her right there. She apologizes for the rush, but there's no time to waste if they want to save Org's arm, and she finds the girl from the inn, holding out the jar and telling her that the potion is finally finished. The girl can't believe Alicia actually pulled it off so quickly, but she doesn't waste any time, grabbing the jar and promising to bring it to the party immediately. Alicia stands there looking completely drained from the work while the girl from the inn sprints through the crowd, shouting for everyone to get out of her way. Alicia watches her go, feeling totally dizzy and wiped out from the effort of making the potion, but the girl reaches the group of adventurers and holds the jar up, announcing that she's brought a rank 5 healing potion. The guys sitting on the floor are completely caught off guard, and they all start losing their minds, asking if that's really a rank 5. They're convinced it's impossible for someone like her to get their hands on something that valuable, and one of the guys is even sure it has to be a fake. But they don't have a choice. They start pouring the liquid right onto the wound. The entire crowd of adventurers and townspeople goes wild as they see the impossible happen. Org's arm has completely grown back right in front of them. And everyone is losing their minds because Org just stares at his hand in total disbelief, while the girl from the inn is behind him crying her eyes out with relief. It's a total miracle, so the local adventurers swarm the girl, demanding to know where she got a potion that powerful. She gets super nervous and just makes up a story, telling them a random peddler passing through gave it to her, which lets Alicia watch from the sidelines without getting caught. She's just happy they made it in time to save him, but then she realizes she needs to find Rand and get back to the inn. Just as she's about to leave, she hears some kids yelling nearby and sees a couple of local kids have grabbed Rand, hyped up because they found a giant turtle right in the middle of the city. They're making a huge scene, and Alicia just stands there with a blank look on her face. It's like a repeat of when she first met him. The kids start talking about roasting and eating him, so Alicia jumps in immediately, telling them to let the turtle go while she charges up her skill to give them a little scare. She's not taking any chances, and the kids completely freak out and run away screaming as fast as they can. With the bullies gone, Alicia scoops Rand up and asks if he's doing okay. The little guy just laughs it off, totally fine now that she's finally there to get him. As Alicia walks through the busy city streets, she starts wondering to herself what her deal actually is after everything that's happened, and Rand is feeling pretty down too, complaining about how he's always getting bullied by human kids. He's honestly starting to doubt if he's even a real spirit anymore, so the little guy starts crying, saying maybe he should just give up on being a spirit and live as a normal turtle. Alicia is completely floored by the idea and she tells him that would be a total waste. She kneels down to look him in the eye, telling Rand he needs to cheer up because he really is a special spirit. Rand asks if she truly believes that, and Alicia tells him to just look at the facts. Org's arm is practically healed, and that's all because of him. She explains that it was only because of his magic water that she was even able to create that high-level heal potion V in the first place, and knowing he actually helped someone makes Rand feel a whole lot better. He realizes there really is something useful he can do after all. But then Alicia's expression suddenly shifts as she notices something nearby that catches her off guard. One of the nearby adventurers looks over at them and asks Alicia if she heard that sound just now. She gets super tense and barely manages to say anything back, while she tries to play it cool and act like nothing happened. The guy isn't convinced though, mentioning how he definitely heard that childlike voice coming from her direction. Org stands there looking down at her with a heavy stare, asking Alicia if she really just said she made a healing potion V, and the entire crowd of adventurers nearby completely loses it. They can't believe what they're hearing, wondering if this random girl actually produced such a high-level item, while one guy realizes that if she's the one, then he definitely needs to thank her for saving his arm. The news travels fast through the street, and suddenly everyone is looking at Alicia like she's some kind of legendary figure. She's just sitting there on the ground feeling small, but a mob of guys starts rushing her immediately. They're all yelling at her to sell them one of those potions, and Alicia is starting to look really overwhelmed when the guild receptionist comes sprinting into the middle of the crowd, shouting Alicia's name at the top of her lungs. She gets right in Alicia's face, demanding to know how she pulled off a rank V potion when the skill she registered at the guild was only compound IV. Alicia is starting to sweat bullets, realizing that the situation is spiraling out of control way faster than she expected. She starts panicking internally, knowing she absolutely cannot let these people find out that her real skill is actually the crazy powerful Compound X. So Rand decides to jump in and save her. He tells the whole crowd that the potion only happened because he's a spirit, and he makes special magical water, leaving everyone completely speechless. The entire group of adventurers is completely losing their minds. One of them yells out in total shock as the word spreads through the street like crazy. Everyone starts screaming about how the turtle actually spoke, and Alicia hides away, thinking about how she tried to fix the mess by claiming the spirit land was the secret to her potions, but the peace doesn't last long. Someone starts pounding on her door, yelling for the green-haired potion seller to open up because they know she's inside. So Alicia just stands there looking totally exhausted. She realizes things are going south again and wonders why this keeps happening while a guy in armor keeps banging on the wood. He's practically begging her to just sell him one of the rank V healing potions. Alicia opens the door just a tiny bit to apologize. She explains that she supplies the guild directly and suggests he just goes and buys one there, but the guy isn't having it. He yells back that there's no way he's paying the insane prices the guild is asking for. Alicia just gives him a tired look, telling him that even if he complains to her about the cost, she has no control over it. She explains the apothecary guild sets all the prices and starts to close the door on him. The guy in the cat hood keeps shouting, pointing out that since Alicia is an adventurer too, she should have some sympathy for him, but he doesn't stop there. He starts begging for a professional discount because they're in the same line of work, while Alicia just stands there looking completely over it. The guy's face twists up and he gets aggressive. He warns her that if she keeps pushing her luck and refusing him, he's going to have to start using force to get what he wants. Right then, Rand decides he's seen enough and starts transforming into his massive spirit form, making the guy realize that the rumors about the turtle were actually true. He pulls out his sword anyway, trying to act tough by yelling that he doesn't care if he's fighting a spirit or not. He starts bragging about being the strongest man in Torid City and begins to announce his big nickname. But he doesn't even get to finish, because Rand hits him with a massive blast of air that sends him flying right out the door. The guy ends up face down on the pavement, and Alicia just looks out at him, telling him that if he finally gets the point, he should just go buy his stuff from the guild. As the guy scrambles away, Alicia realizes she's kind of reaping what she sowed. Ever since the big scene with the turtle, these kinds of annoying people have been showing up non-stop. And just as she's processing the headache, the landlady shows up with a broom. She asks if Alicia is doing okay after all that noise. The blonde landlady watches the door, confused because another male adventurer just sprinted out of the building soaking wet and Alicia just stands there with a blank look. She explains the guy tried to force himself on her, so she gave him a little taste of discipline. The landlady goes back to sweeping and tells Rand she's a good girl, mentioning how spirits really are powerful. Rand just nods and agrees. Alicia thinks to herself that while having a spirit around is great for self-defense, there's a pretty big downside since Rand's attack left a massive puddle of water stretching all across the floor. Rand starts apologizing for the mess immediately, but the landlady just waves it off and says she'll wipe it up right away. She gives Alicia a warm smile, telling her not to worry about it because dealing with stuff like this is just part of the job at an inn. Alicia tells her she really appreciates it, but she's already out in the city. She knows it's time to find a place of her own, so she pulls out a map to navigate the streets. Rand peeks out from her bag and asks where they're actually heading, and Alicia keeps her eyes on the map, telling the spirit they're going to find a real estate agent. Alicia admits she feels pretty bad for the landlady because of the constant drama she's been causing lately. Luckily, she's finally saved up enough cash to actually buy her own house and move out. Rand tells her to slow down and look at the bigger picture though, because even if she moves to a new spot in the city, the weird adventurers chasing her aren't just going to disappear into thin air. Rand suggests it might be a better move to just leave for a different town entirely. Alicia says she hears him, but for right now, she's not planning on leaving this city at all. She holds up 2 fingers and tells the spirit there are 2 big reasons for staying put. The first is that this city, Torid, is right next to the Forest of Fours, making it the perfect spot to gather all the rare magical plants she needs for her potion ingredients. Rand asks what the second reason is, so Alicia explains that her whole plan from the start was to make a living by selling her potions right here. Alicia gets all fired up and shouts that her ultimate goal is to finally own her own shop, explaining that those adventurers chasing her are actually loyal customers, and it would be a total waste to lose them. Rand just says he gets it, surprised that she's actually been thinking things through. Alicia tells him not to underestimate her as they walk through the city and head inside a local real estate office where they get greeted by the staff. A cheerful agent with a little hat asks her what kind of property she's looking for today, so she sits down at the counter to go over the details while he gets ready to take some notes. Alicia tells him she needs a place that's really spacious and has a well nearby, but then she adds that she needs a spot where even a really bad smell won't be a problem at all. The agent starts sweating, looking totally creeped out as he asks what she's actually planning to do there, and Rand tells her she sounds like some crazy criminal looking for a place to hide bodies. Alicia explains to the agent that she's a concoctor, which is why she needs a huge space where she can work without any distractions or worries, and the agent just wipes the sweat off his forehead, saying he finally gets what she's looking for. He tells her he has just the place for those specific needs and starts grabbing flyers off the wall, while Rand just sits there thinking that Alicia is a total weirdo, but the agent just points out a specific spot on the map, and Alicia thanks him as she takes a closer look at the paperwork. She notices something odd and asks why the price for this place is so crazy cheap, making the agent look pretty uncomfortable, explaining that a famous alchemist used to live there, and all the high-end equipment was left behind exactly as it was, still in perfect condition. Alicia doesn't even hesitate. She gets stars in her eyes and shouts that she's decided to take the place right now. Rand tells her she needs to calm down because they still haven't heard the catch or the real reason why it's being sold for next to nothing. So Alicia asks the agent to be straight with her about why the property is so cheap, and he starts to get real nervous, leaning in with a terrified look, and saying the reason is that people claim a real ghost appears inside the house. Alicia looks at the agent with a completely straight face and tells him that if a ghost is the only catch, then there shouldn't be any problem at all, leaving the man totally panicked as he begs her to wait, explaining that he's actually in the middle of hiring a psychic to investigate the place first. But Alicia doesn't want to hear it and says there's no need for any of that. She's convinced that something as unscientific as a ghost just isn't real, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Moving on to the property, the agent brings her to a massive, old-fashioned mansion that looks pretty overgrown and abandoned, standing tall against the dark trees. Before they step onto the porch, the agent stops and asks if she's really sure she wants to go in, warning her that the agency won't be responsible for anything that happens. But Alicia just stands there looking bored and says she doesn't have a problem with that. However, Rand pipes up and asks if she didn't just say ghosts aren't real, because they're currently looking through a window at a pale girl standing inside the house. It gets even weirder when two more creepy kids with blank eyes show up in the window to stare them down, yet they head inside anyway, with the agent holding up a lantern and nervously pointing out that they've made it to the living room. Alicia keeps the tour going by pointing out the bathroom, while the agent just stands there sweating like crazy as they head into a storage room. He doesn't even notice the ghost girl walking right behind him, but Alicia just says she sees, acting like everything is normal. The agent mentions how old the house is and how the whole place feels pretty creepy, and then a loud, ghostly laugh echoes through the hall. The agent freezes up instantly, and he completely loses his mind and starts screaming at the top of his lungs. While shaking, he turns to Alicia and desperately asks if she heard that laugh too. Alicia just tells him to calm down, casually mentioning it was just laughter from an empty room. The guy is stunned by how unfazed she is, so Rand decides to chime in, asking Alicia if it might be a better idea to just leave. She isn't having it and asks what he's even talking about, since they only just stepped inside the place. So they keep moving through the house while more creepy giggles fill the air and the portraits start laughing at the poor agent. The agent is completely losing it, running through the halls while ghostly laughter echoes all around them. He screams at Alicia, asking how she can possibly stay so calm while the place is clearly haunted, and even Rand is a bit confused, pointing out that she's acting way too chill for someone who claimed ghosts aren't even real. Alicia just gives him a look and says she'll explain that part to him later on, keeping her focus on opening the door to the very last room. It turns out to be a massive laboratory, and while the agent is back there shaking like a leaf, Alicia is absolutely loving it. She starts geeking out over all the gear, like the mana-powered stirrer, the heating unit, and even a tool for grinding up materials. She gets so hyped that she literally jumps onto the bookshelves when she finds research papers that haven't been in print for decades, leaving the agent just standing there wiping sweat off his face. She turns to him with stars in her eyes and asks if all this amazing equipment becomes hers if she buys the house, and he tells her that it does. The guy tries to act professional and says it's all part of the deal, but he doesn't notice a glass flask starting to float right behind his head until he turns around and sees it hovering there. He lets out a loud scream and nearly jumps out of his skin while Alicia just watches him, totally over his reaction. He desperately asks if she's actually serious about living in a creepy mansion like this, but she just asks if he's still really worrying about that ghost stuff. The agent is completely losing his cool, screaming at Alicia and asking how she can be so calm while all this crazy stuff is happening around them, especially since the room is turning into a total paranormal mess with books and glass beakers flying through the air and smashing into the shelves. The guy just covers his eyes and lets out another loud scream, totally unable to handle the pressure. But Alicia is just standing there looking annoyed, complaining that the lab equipment looked like it was still in good enough shape to use. The agent snaps back that her gear is definitely not the main problem right now, especially when the door to the lab slams shut on its own, leaving them trapped inside while he panics about what they're supposed to do. Alicia gets a serious look in her eyes, realizing the ghost is actually strong enough to use psychokinesis and decides it's time to wrap this up. So when Rand asks if she's doing all right, she just tells the little spirit to sit back and leave the rest to her. Suddenly, a creepy voice starts coming from the dark corners of the room, demanding that they give something up, and the three ghost children fully appear with jagged teeth and scary smiles, telling Alicia she needs to hand over her most precious thing. The ghost children crowd around Alicia, getting way too close while one of them mentions how good she smells, and they immediately pick up on her power, asking if she's hiding a massive amount of magic inside. The spirits finally snap and lunge at her all at once, screaming for her to hand over all that magic, but Alicia doesn't even blink, telling them she isn't giving them her power and uncorking a small bottle instead. She splashes them with an exorcism potion, sending the ghosts into a total panic as they scream from the hit. Looking at the bottle, she's pretty impressed with the results, since the light leaf she found in the forest really did the trick. Alicia stands there looking proud of herself, mentioning how remarkable the effects were, while the agent just stands there shaking his head, unable to believe she actually finished the job with just a potion. She tells him the little wraith is officially taken care of, holding up her gear like it was no big deal. So as they head out, the guy asks if this means ghosts aren't even real and it's just monsters, which Alicia confirms. Alicia breaks it down for the agent, explaining that what people call paranormal activity is really just the work of ghost-type monsters. And even though he might not know it from his line of work, it's common knowledge for magic researchers, which makes the guy ask if she's still down to buy the place. Alicia gets super hyped and says she's definitely taking the property, but then Rand spots something outside. He tells Alicia there's something in the garden, and she looks over to see a massive spirit appearing out of nowhere. The ghost calls her the alchemist's daughter, catching her by surprise as he stands there. The old man's spirit thanks her for getting rid of the monsters that took over his estate and tells her the house belongs to her now. He just wants her to use the brewing gear and the herb garden well before mentioning he can finally go to heaven in peace. He starts fading away into the sky, leaving Alicia and Rand standing there completely speechless as they watch the former owner of the house move on. She finally snaps out of it and apologizes to the realtor, who looks like he's about to lose it after seeing yet another ghost. The real estate agent is shaking, finally admitting that ghosts might actually be real, making Alicia wonder if he's seriously just now getting scared. Elsewhere in the region, the Red Eagle party is heading back into the woods. One of the guys asks Olgu if he's really sure about jumping right back into a hunt without even taking a break to rest. They're all worried about him, especially since Olgu is fixated on the mission, saying the monster that took his arm is too dangerous to leave alone. He's determined to take it down fast before it hurts anyone else. But deep down, there's another reason he's so motivated, and as he thinks of Alicia, he suddenly punches a tree and tells himself to focus on the mission. His teammates are completely confused and ask him what's wrong, but he just stands there struggling to find the words. He starts losing it as a massive nosebleed suddenly sprays everywhere, leaving him screaming at himself and wondering what the hell is wrong with him while his team just watches. Back at the mansion, Alicia is checking out the library. She's blown away by how many reference materials are just sitting there, ready to be used. She finds a stash of rare alchemy materials like eyeballs and monster teeth, and she couldn't be happier with her new home. Alicia holds up a pickled specimen, wondering why nobody else wanted to buy such a great property. But Rand just tells her that most normal people don't get hyped up about seeing dead things in jars. Rand asks her what her actual plan is now that she has the place, while Alicia looks over the old tools, explaining that she wants to open a potion shop, though it would be way better if it were close by. And her big idea is to just build the shop right there in the mansion's garden. Rand points out that she'll have to grind out a ton of potions to afford a whole new building, which means he's worried it'll take forever. But Alicia says it's no big deal since she can make as many as she needs. Suddenly, Alicia notices something strange through a gap in the wood and stops asking Rand if he can help her move a heavy shelf out of the way because it looks like there's a hidden room or a secret space tucked away right behind it. Rand is more than happy to help Alicia out. He looks pretty hyped to show off his spirit powers as he starts shifting the heavy furniture aside. And Alicia can't believe what's happening because right there under the shelf is a hidden room with a staircase heading straight down into a dark basement. Alicia says she's positive this place wasn't on the official house plans, but Rand just suggests they check it out, hoping there might be some kind of treasure tucked away down there that was hidden for a reason. Alicia likes that idea, noting that if they find anything of value, they could put it toward the shop funds. She decides they should just go for it and starts heading down the stone steps into the dark. Meanwhile, back at the massive Bromia's estate, it's late at night when a servant goes to find Lord Thomas. The guy looks pretty nervous as he stands by the door, telling the Count that there's something he needs to say, and Count Bromia's looks like he's about to lose it, gripping his staff and demanding to know what's up. The servant explains that monster attacks have been on the rise all over the territory lately, realizing too late that he's interrupted the Count's training session. Bromia slams his spear into the floor, telling the guy to stop bugging him with every little trivial report, reminding him that this place was once known as the Magical Wilds, so monster attacks are just a regular thing here. But the servant insists that's not the main problem they're facing right now, explaining that a massive number of people have been injured in just a few days across several different locations. The Count listens as the man reports that according to the villagers, things only got this bad because they completely ran out of potions, and now they're desperately begging the estate to send more supplies as soon as possible. The servant starts to look pretty worried, mentioning that whenever he hears the word potion, he can't help but think of Lady Alicia, so he asks if this whole mess might have something to do with her being gone. That's the breaking point for Count Bromias, who slams his spear down again right next to the guy, making him flinch in terror. The servant tries to explain how the potion shortage links back to Alicia, but the Count just stares him down, asking what he's getting at. Bromias gets even more aggressive, asking if the guy is seriously suggesting monster attacks increased just because he kicked his daughter out, which sends the servant into a total panic, quickly telling the Lord he's reading too much into things. But the guy can't hold back the news, stammering out that Alicia has apparently been supplying her own potions to the Skrull Trading Company for a long time, suggesting they should at least check it out. But Bromias just snaps at him, calling the whole thing a waste of time. He starts walking off, dismissing potions as nothing but fake scams, and saying only a complete idiot would ever rely on them, getting right in the servant's face to order an increase in soldier patrols instead of looking for medicine. He figures that beefing up the watch will solve everything, and if that fails, he'll just make the men train until they're stronger, leaving the servant slumped against the door, shaking as he whispers that he understands the orders. With the servant out of the way, Bromias stands alone, thinking about the fact that Alicia is actually doing business with a major guild. Count Bromias scoffs to himself, convinced Alicia was just playing pretend as a potion maker by using her name, thinking there is absolutely no way a girl that useless could actually pull off anything real on her own. Meanwhile, down in the mansion's basement, Alicia is completely floored by how massive the hidden area is, staring at what looks like an underground field while Rand reminds her the old spirit gave them permission to use it. She's so dazed that Rand has to ask if she's even listening, but she just admits the whole site is too much to take in. Then the potential of the place hits her. With this much room, she can grow all the potion ingredients she'll ever need. But Rand suddenly calls her over to a corner because he found something tucked away that looks pretty interesting, which turns out to be a total jackpot. Alicia leans in, realizing she's looking at something incredibly rare. It's a spellbound safe, locked up tight with magic and sitting right there on the floor in front of them. She starts to call out what it is, but she barely gets the words out before the safe starts acting up. Alicia explains that this safe isn't like a normal one because it only opens if you say a specific incantation, while Rand asks if that means they're stuck, making Alicia admit it might be impossible to get inside. But then she remembers that owners usually leave a hint nearby since people tend to forget their own passwords. So she starts searching the casing and finds a tiny inscription tucked away on the side, which turns out to be a really specific history question about a famous paper written by a scientist over 800 years ago. Alicia stares at the text, completely caught off guard by how difficult this supposedly helpful hint actually is, but she thinks it over and recites a long, complicated title about mythical monsters, while Rand just wonders what kind of weird spell she's casting. She tells him she's just answering the question, and right then, a loud click echoes through the basement. Rand yells out that the door is finally open, but Alicia starts getting second thoughts and asks him if they're really sure about this. The two of them lean in close, staring into the dark safe and wondering what's waiting for them inside. The safe door finally swings open inside. 3 big, dusty rocks are just sitting there. Rand looks at them and asks if they're just regular stones, and Alicia admits that's what they look like, but Rand just slumps over, saying the whole thing is a total letdown after all that work. Alicia picks one up and says she doesn't think the old owner would leave stuff behind if it was actually junk, so she suggests they go get them appraised just in case. They head to a shop where a guy immediately starts losing it. The appraisers start sweating, yelling out the names of super rare ores like alternatate and firefly pyroxene. Alicia asks if they're actually worth something, and the shop girl tells her they're worth a ton. Right as the appraiser literally faints from the shock while the girl screams for him to wake up. Selling those rare ores works out great. Alicia walks away with a massive bag of money, more than enough to get her own business started, when someone nearby notices her new place and asks if she's opening a shop. The old shopkeeper just laughs while Alicia sits back with some tea, mentioning they finally finished talking about the construction plans. The old lady asks if she already went and got her business permit, but Alicia just stares back with a totally blank look. Alicia asks what a business permit even is. The shopkeeper starts to sweat, realizing Alicia didn't plan for this at all. The lady tells her she can't actually open a shop in this town without one, and Alicia completely loses it. She looks super stressed and asks where she's even supposed to go to get something like that. The shopkeeper explains that for a potion shop, she has to go see the Alchemist Guild Master. So Alicia heads over to a massive, fancy building called Aaron's Workshop, where the guy is supposed to be. She stands by the gate looking at the huge facility, wondering where the entrance is since the place is so big, when a guy in a white coat shows up out of nowhere and asks if she has business with the workshop. Alicia tries to stay calm and tells him she's there to get a permit to finally open her own potion shop. Ben looks completely caught off guard, sweating as he realizes Alicia is actually there to ask for a stall permit. The whole situation seems to stress him out, but he quickly catches himself and apologizes to Alicia for being so rude and not introducing himself first. He takes a second to calm down, putting a hand on his chest and telling her that his name is Ben and he's the assistant director of the workshop. Alicia reaches out to shake his hand, introducing herself as an alchemist, while Ben politely addresses her as Lady Alicia. As they start walking through the gate, Ben explains that the director is the only one who can actually sign off on those permits. He mentions he'll lead the way to see him, but warns Alicia that the guy can be a little bit weird, though Alicia doesn't seem to mind. Suddenly, Alicia stops and looks over with stars in her eyes, asking if the building she sees is a water-repellent greenhouse with its own magic water system. Ben looks pretty impressed by how much she knows and confirms that she's totally right about what that building is. She spots another building in the back and asks if it's a compounding facility, and Ben tells her it's a special wing made with high-shielding materials. Alicia can't contain herself anymore, shouting about how amazing all the equipment is before she starts running toward the buildings like a total fan. Ben watches Alicia dash toward the equipment in total shock, calling out her name, while Rand just sighs, noting that she's definitely a bit of an oddball. Alicia turns back with stars in her eyes and tells Ben how absolutely magnificent his workshop is, though Ben looks like he isn't so sure about that. He just looks away with a sweat drop, repeating her words to himself like there's something she doesn't know about this place yet. They reach the office where a voice from behind the door welcomes them to the official Aaron workshop. Inside, the workshop director adjusts his glasses and makes it clear right away that he's the one who holds all the power for shop permits in the city. He leans back in his chair with a pretty devious look on his face, introducing himself as Aaron, the head of the entire Alchemists Guild. Alicia looks a bit caught off guard when Aaron tells her it's an honor to finally meet the famous green-haired potion seller. She stands there in front of his massive desk, totally confused, and asks how he even knows her by that specific name. Aaron just laughs it off, leaning back and telling her that she's actually become quite the celebrity around town lately. He pulls out a thick folder filled with notes on her, and mentions he even heard about her healing Algu's severed arm, leaving Alicia completely stunned by how much he knows. Rand whispers to Alicia, asking if she remembers him saying he can see if someone has a good or bad heart, and Alicia says she does, though she looks a bit worried as Rand points out that Aaron is actually a pretty shady guy with a murky heart. Rand tells her to keep her guard up, warning her that even with her talent, trying to open a shop in this town is going to be a real struggle. While across the desk, Alicia asks if it's really that hard, and Aaron leans in close, asking if she's ready to hear the truth. He explains that since the city of Torid is right next to the Forest of Fours, they get all the best resources, and because of that tons of people are trying to open potion shops here, making the competition way too fierce for most to handle. Aaron tells her straight up that he doesn't think an independent shop without any big names backing it will ever get any customers, leading him to offer her a deal to come work at his workshop instead. He starts promising her the best treatment she'll find anywhere, but Alicia just raises her hand and shuts him down immediately. Ben and Aaron both freeze in total shock. They can't believe she just gave him a flat-out no. Alicia makes it clear that for the time being, she has zero plans to work for anyone else, and Aaron looks like he's losing his mind. She explains her real goal is to finally have a place of her own that nobody can ever take away from her again. Alicia mentions she even turned down Erika for the same reason, and Aaron can't help but ask why she would do that. He starts yelling, telling her there's no better way to make it as a mixer in this city than the deal he's offering, but it doesn't change her mind. She thanks him for the offer but says she just can't accept, leaving Aaron slumped over his desk while she watches him. He pulls himself together and stands up, sighing that it's a real shame she won't join him. Aaron fixes his glasses and shifts gears, saying it's time to go over the actual rules for getting a shop permit. Alicia is surprised there are conditions, but Aaron just smirks and reminds her that he's the head of the Alchemist Guild. He explains that he's responsible for the quality of potions in the city, so he can't just hand out permits to anyone who walks in. Alicia and Rand wait as Aaron starts looking through his options, saying he'll see what he can do for her. Aaron lays down the law, demanding 50 rank V antidote potions in just 7 days, a crazy high bar, but he promises to hand over the permit if she actually does it. Ben starts to lose it, yelling that the request is way too much, but Aaron just ignores him, casually calling out for his assistant while he gives Ben a terrifying look, asking if he's got a problem with how things are run around there. Ben starts shaking and tries to backpedal, saying it's not exactly like that, though it doesn't really help his case. Aaron just shuts him down immediately, telling him to keep his mouth closed and stay out of it. Alicia watches the drama and asks if these permits always have such impossible rules, since most people would probably fail, and Aaron just laughs it off. He explains that the conditions change depending on who he's talking to, and right now he's making it clear that for her, this is the bare minimum for opening a shop in this city. He doesn't stop there though, telling her she's perfectly free to just leave if she can't handle the heat. Aaron smirks, suggesting she could always join his workshop if the challenge is too big, but Alicia just stays calm and tells him she gets it. Aaron looks completely confused by what he just heard, while Alicia tries to explain herself again, starting off by pointing out that she used to provide monster repellent for an entire territory by herself. She's confident she can handle his request, leaving Aaron totally stunned at the scale of her past work, and Alicia just casually double-checks the goal 50 rank V potions in 1 week. Aaron starts breaking a sweat as he realizes he might have underestimated her, but Ben is the one who really loses it. He asks if she's actually serious, pointing out that even with top-tier synthesis skills, those conditions are basically a nightmare. Alicia looks at Aaron with a blank stare, mentioning that the way he talks makes it seem like he's setting these impossible goals on purpose. Aaron feels the sting of her words and she doesn't waste any more time, telling him she's heading out. Aaron completely panics, jumping up from his desk and begging her to wait a second so he can try to convince her to stay and chat just a bit longer. He's got this desperate look on his face, but Alicia isn't having it. She turns him down flat, explaining that she has a lot of prep work to do if she's going to finish those potions on time. Aaron doesn't give up though, suggesting they could trade some insider info on the potion industry while he gives her a tour of the workshop. Alicia thinks about it and finally agrees, saying she can spare a tiny bit of time. Meanwhile, Ben just stands there in total shock at how she's running the show. Alicia notices that Aaron is totally obsessed with potions, which is exactly what her research pointed out. Meanwhile, Ben and Aaron are in the back looking pretty uneasy about how things are going. Aaron looks completely wiped out as he tells Bent he's leaving the rest of the work to him, and moving on to the marketplace. Alicia walks through the crowds thinking about how intense the people at that workshop are. She figures it makes sense for the biggest shop in Torid to be that dedicated, but Rand has to snap her out of it, asking her how long she plans on standing there lost in her own head. Rand points out that the deadline for those potions is coming up fast, and Alicia starts to sweat a little, admitting that he's totally right about needing to hurry. She decides their first move is to find some lily of the valley to use as a base for the antidotes, so she head over to a stall, but the shopkeeper looks at her with an apologetic face, saying he's sorry to break the news to her. He explains that Aaron's guys were just there a bit ago and bought every single lily of the valley in the entire town, leaving Alicia standing there with a look of pure shock. She can't believe what she's hearing and asks him to repeat himself, realizing that Aaron's shop totally played them. Rand asks her what the plan is now, since they've basically been cornered by the competition. The shopkeeper continues his explanation, mentioning that while the lily of the valley isn't a rare flower, there is a catch when it comes to buying them. He says they only grow during the rainy season, so once the town is out of stock, they won't see any more until next year, which means Alicia is officially stuck. Aaron looks like he's already won with that creepy grin, saying they've got their own way of handling things, leaving Alicia feeling like she has no choice but to try a crazy idea of her own. She tells Rand it's time to get moving, and even though the little guy looks totally exhausted, she's already set on her next move. Rand thinks to himself about how he knew the outside world was full of weird stuff, but he never expected to be doing this. Alicia is literally pulling a heavy wooden cart through the streets to collect a massive pile of horse manure, and Rand just watches from the back, muttering about how he didn't think she would actually go this far. Flashing back to about 30 minutes ago, Alicia is still processing the bad news while walking through the market. Rand asks her what she's planning to do about their situation, because they're still facing the fact that every single lily of the valley needed for those antidote potions has been completely bought up by the competition. Alicia confirms with the shopkeeper that the flowers she needs aren't available this season, then turns to leave while realizing that if she doesn't find a way, her shop permit will be rejected. So she pulls out a small bag and shows Rand that she's got a stash of seeds ready to go. Rand is confused since they're just starting with the basics, and he asks if she really thinks they have time to grow a whole garden from scratch. He points out that the delivery deadline is only a week away, but Alicia tells him there's a special potion for exactly this kind of problem. She shows him a bottle of growth acceleration potion, which is meant to make plants grow way faster than normal, and explains they can have the flowers ready in no time. Rand is actually impressed and thinks the plan is genius, though he's still wondering about the catch. He asks her what they need to actually make the stuff, and Alicia tells him the first step is getting some horse poop. She says it with a totally straight face, leaving Rand to deal with the reality of her plan. Rand can barely say the words, asking if she's seriously talking about horse poop. He's completely grossed out, but that's how the two of them end up at a stable. The narrator says they've finally caught up to the present, with Rand looking like he's about to lose his lunch while Alicia gets ready to work. Alicia starts raking out the fertilizer like it's no big deal, leaving Rand hunched over in the background gagging from the smell. The next day, they're out in the woods. Rand is still complaining about how much yesterday sucked and how he can't get the stink off him, then asks what they're hunting for now. Alicia checks her map while they walk, telling him she's looking for a magical plant called a fayu fruit. Rand is confused and asks why she doesn't just buy the materials in town instead of hiking through the forest. Alicia just looks at her map and tells him it's not that simple, because the fayu fruit is a pretty specific find. It grows in these dark, jagged-looking pods. She explains that you can technically turn it into a healing potion, but the effect is so weak it's basically a waste of time. The real issue is the taste. Alicia says it's so foul that even birds and wild animals won't touch it, which makes it a nightmare to work with. Alicia keeps explaining that the fruit isn't sold anywhere because people think it's totally useless for crafting, which makes Rand freak out, asking if she's actually planning to turn something like that into a potion. Alicia just starts running and says she'll explain the details later, but right now they need to move since the deadline is coming up fast. She eventually stops at the base of a massive rock wall and pulls out her map. Rand stares up at the height and deadpans that it's a cliff, while Alicia just calmly agrees that it's a big one. Rand points toward a plant growing way up on the ledge and asks if that's the fruit she's after, and Alicia confirms it. She looks over at Rand and asks if he could reach it if he transformed back into his bigger form, but Rand shuts that idea down immediately, telling her there's no way he can do that. Alicia looks back at her map and gives up on the spot, saying it can't be helped since they can't get up there. She starts walking away, mentioning she doesn't want to waste time and suggests trying a different spot, but Rand suddenly spots something. While Alicia is checking her map, a group of adventurers shows up and asks if she's the famous potion seller everyone's talking about. So she looks up and realizes these guys are actually from the Red Eagles, and they seem pretty hyped to see her standing there. The guy in the front steps up and introduces himself as Aug, the leader of the party. He turns around and finally gets the words out, thanking her for fixing up his arm when he was in bad shape. Alicia just stares at him, thinking about how he gives off the vibe of a serious veteran who's been through it all. Aug keeps going, telling her she really saved him back then since he wouldn't have known what to do as a greatsword user without both hands. Just then, the entire group suddenly drops into a deep bow, which completely catches Alicia off guard. Aug looks down and says he's truly sorry for taking so long to show his gratitude, but he explains he was busy tracking down the monster that mangled his arm in the first place, and he just finished it off. Alicia gets a bit flustered and tells him there's really no need for all the thanks, but the respect they're showing is pretty clear. Alicia tries to play it cool, telling them not to worry because she feels like she didn't do anything that special. Aug isn't having it though, yelling out that he absolutely can't just let things go like that. He looks her right in the eye and calls her his savior, clenching his fist while promising to do whatever she asks. Aug looks up at the steep cliff and asks if he just needs to grab those plants for her, and Alicia just gives him a hesitant okay. She starts feeling a bit guilty for suggesting it, thinking about how climbing that wall barehanded should be way too hard. But she tries to tell him not to push himself if it's impossible, wondering if she made a mistake asking for help. Before she can even finish, Aug is already at the top of the cliff grabbing the branch while she just stares in shock, He leaps down and sticks the landing right in front of her. He holds out the branch with the rare berries and tells her here's the stuff she needed. Alicia takes the plant and asks if he's really sure she can have it, so Og just smiles and says they have no use for it anyway, and it'll be perfect for her little friend. Alicia gets super excited and grabs Org's hands, thanking him over and over for the help. She tells him she's honestly just so glad he was there, making him turn bright red from the sudden attention. Org starts stammering while they shake hands, trying to play it cool by saying it was all just a piece of cake. Alicia keeps going though, telling him one more time how much he really helped them out. She's glowing with excitement now that they finally have everything they need to make the potion. Moving on, Alicia waves goodbye as she heads off, leaving the rest of the party to wave back while Org stands there in the back, totally spaced out and whispering about how she actually held his hand. One of his teammates tells him not to even say he's catching feelings for her, but Org immediately tries to shut that down, and he starts making excuses, saying he was really just grateful that she healed his arm earlier. As they walk away, he finally admits to himself that he's just shocked because she's totally his type, and way nicer than he thought she'd be. The Red Eagle guys keep messing with Org, and one of them teases him about being in love. Org just snaps back with a bright red face, yelling that he already told them he isn't in love with her. Back at the workshop, Alicia starts the process by putting some dried horse manure into a large wooden barrel. Then Calva helps out by pouring in the magical water while Alicia keeps a close eye on the mixture. Next, she adds the fuyo fruit they harvested from the Great Forest, letting them float right on top of the liquid. Alicia explains that once the mixture starts soaking for a few days, the fruit's properties will change into a key ingredient for growth potions, though Rand seems a bit worried about the timing. He asks her straight up if she's actually going to be able to hit the delivery deadline for these orders, and Alicia looks a little unsure for a second, admitting that she really hopes they can pull it off. She doesn't want to just sit around and wait though, so she tells Rand they should go take care of the underground fields. The construction crew is busy hammering away at a new wooden structure, and Ben calls out to the workshop master as he looks out the window completely confused, asking what on earth is even being built out there. Aaron stays sitting at his desk, happily checking some papers while he explains that he's having a brand new laboratory built. He leans in with a creepy grin, adding that the place is being made specifically for Alicia to use, and Ben just stands there sweating, totally shocked that he's actually building a whole lab just for her. Aaron adjusts his tie, acting like it's obvious because she's talented enough to brew rank 5 potions, and with a crazy look in his eyes, he says that once he gets his hands on her, he's going to lock her in that lab to make her churn out profitable potions one after another, leaving Ben looking pretty concerned for her. Ben tries to point out that she hasn't even agreed to join them yet, but Aaron just cuts into his steak and says it's already a done deal. He starts laughing, admitting there's no way he could make 50 top-tier antidote potions in a week by himself, so he needs her. Aaron laughs like a villain while holding up a small tool, bragging that he's already bought up every single lily of the valley in the entire town, which Ben has to admit is true, though he still looks pretty stressed out while Aaron just sits there chuckling to himself. With a creepy look in his eyes, Aaron says it's really just a matter of time before he finally makes that talented girl his, and the scene shifts to a massive underground garden area inside the mansion, where a long, tired sigh fills the room. Turns out it's Alicia, and she's already exhausted, crouching down and complaining about how much her back hurts. Rand watches her from the top of a crate, reminding her that she's barely even started tilling the fields yet. He suggests she should just hire some adventurers to help out again, especially since she always calls them whenever there's heavy lifting to do, like when they helped her move into the mansion or hauled all that horse manure, leaving Alicia looking pretty embarrassed. But she gets a serious look on her face, explaining that she really wants to do as much of the potion-making process as she can on her own. Rand just stares at her, totally amazed, and asks her just how much she actually loves making potions anyway. Alicia chugs a heal potion to get her energy back, telling herself she's gotta keep going, and she gets back to work with her hoe, while Rand sits on a nearby crate shouting for her to keep it up. But the physical labor is just too much, and she ends up collapsed on the floor while Rand watches. Time is running out at the mansion with only one single day left before her big deadline, so she manages to pull it together, finally reaching the point where she can open up the processing barrel. She announces that it's finally finished, and after Rand gives her some credit for the hard work, she gets ready. Reaching her hand out over the barrels, she calls out her synthesis skill, and it creates a massive batch of high-potency growth potion meant to make plants shoot up way faster than normal. She starts pouring the mixture over the spots where she planted the seeds, hoping for the best, and it actually works. A tiny little sprout pops out of the dirt as Rand tells her to take a look. Alicia is hyped because the seeds have already sprouted, showing her growth potion is working, but she starts to say they'll be ready in no time before stopping mid-sentence. She notices something is definitely off. Rand asks what he's even looking at, while Alicia just stands there sweating in total shock at the results. Moving on to the deadline day at the workshop, someone greets her as she arrives at the building. Aaron gives her this smug, annoying smile and says he's glad she actually showed up instead of running away, while he looks over the table full of potions and admits she actually brought the right amount they agreed on. He tells her they look like the right potions, but warns her that petty tricks aren't going to work on him, and he brags about having staff with the appraisal skill to catch fakes. Meanwhile, his assistant starts the check. Aaron keeps talking trash about how it's too bad for her, but his assistant is starting to look really stressed. While Aaron is busy laughing in the back, the assistant nervously calls out to him because of what he's seeing. Bento looks at the results and can't believe his eyes, saying the potions are actually the real thing. Aaron starts losing his cool, yelling that there's no way it's possible and asking if he even checked them right. Bento stammers that he definitely did, explaining he ran the appraisal a bunch of times and the results stayed the same. With sweat dripping down his face, the assistant confirms every single bottle is a high-quality rank 5 detox potion. Aaron tries to play it off by saying the guy must just be sick, then demands Ben go find another appraiser immediately, but even a whole group of experts just waves their hands in agreement, telling Aaron that the potions are the real deal. Aaron stares at the shelf in total disbelief, muttering that it's impossible, while Alicia asks him what the big deal is. She looks at him calmly, wondering why he's so shocked that she could actually make a basic detoxification potion. So Aaron starts making up wild lies, accusing her of buying them from some other town and refusing to give her the permit. Alicia just stares back at him while he points his finger, asking if that's really how he's planning to handle this. Alicia decides she's had enough of the manager's lies. She tells him that if he's going to keep this up, she's going to show him the truth. She calls out for her guests to come in, and right on cue, a group of guys burst through the door yelling about their arrival, and they start hauling in massive wooden crates like it's nothing. Aaron completely loses it, asking who these people even are. Alicia just tells him not to sweat it, explaining that they're just some adventurers she hired to help out with a delivery. As the workers drop the load, Aaron nervously reaches out to open one of the crates. He asks her what she's even carrying in these, and the second he sees the contents, he starts screaming. He can't believe that the entire crate is packed with rank 5 antidotes. With her point proven, Alicia turns her attention back to the workshop manager to settle things once and for all. She reminds him about his theory from a minute ago, the one where he claimed she had to be importing these potions from another city. Then she drops the facts on him. She asks if he really thinks anyone could just go and find 500 rank 5 potions in only 7 days. Aaron finally breaks and slumps to the floor in total defeat. He mutters that he gets it now and says he'll finally give her the permit. Back at the mansion, Alicia celebrates their success. She yells out to Rand that they actually pulled it off, and Rand brings up how worried he was when those lilies of the valley started growing like crazy. Alicia laughs it off, admitting it was a pretty big surprise, but Rand points out that in the end, everything turned out for the best anyway. Alicia sits back in her chair and agrees with him. She looks totally relaxed while Rand mentions that making 500 bottles is still a bit much for one person. Alicia just shrugs, saying maybe the reaction she gets from all that hard work is what makes crafting so much fun. But then her mood shifts a bit. She starts wondering why the workers at that place even follow a guy like Aaron. It doesn't make sense to her, especially since she thinks he looks like a total small fry who can't handle himself. Rand hears that and admits she's probably right about him, leaving Alicia staring out at the old buildings nearby. She wonders if there's some hidden reason behind why Aaron acts the way he does. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the rundown street. Some guy is yelling out, asking if Sam is around. The camera moves to a trash doorway where a cheap sign is hanging inside. A shady guy sits there counting a massive pile of coins. He smirks and asks Aaron what he's doing there. The shady man inside the building watches Aaron grab a pouch of coins from the table and notes how much of a hurry the workshop director is in, but Aaron doesn't seem to care about the cost. He looks completely stressed out as he tells the guy he'll pay whatever price is asked, as long as the man does a specific job for him. Aaron gets a creepy look on his face, grinning like he's finally got a plan to handle his problems. Back with Alicia, she looks over the blueprints for her new shop and lets out a big sigh of relief. It's finally starting to feel real. While crossing a bridge with Rand, she mentions how excited she is for construction to finally start. Rand stays quiet for a second before telling her it might be a bit late to ask, but he wants to know if she actually plans on running the whole shop by herself. Alicia looks over at him and tells him that for right now, that's exactly the plan. She seems pretty sure of herself, but she eventually admits she's still a little worried about how things will go, especially after all the trouble with the guildmaster. Org is standing nearby and tells her he gets why she'd feel that way. Alicia calls out to him, and Org looks a bit flustered as he says it's been a while since they last spoke. As she walks down the stairs with Rand, Alicia thanks him again for helping her out recently. Org watches her go, telling her that he really wants to do something to pay her back whenever she's ready. Org starts panicking and tells Alicia not to worry about it, but she just calmly says she was only returning the favor for him helping her out with her arm. Alicia notices he's being weird and asks if he's acting a bit stiff. Org immediately gets defensive, stammering that it's not true at all, but he ends up shouting at the top of his lungs that he isn't nervous. Alicia just stands there looking at him completely unbothered while the blonde guy from his party watches from the side, whispering to the others about how Org is totally losing his cool. The girl with glasses tells him to cut the leader some slack, since the guy has spent his whole life hunting monsters and has no idea how to talk to women, leaving the rest of the crew just reminiscing about how bad he used to be at this kind of thing. Alicia decides to change the subject, asking Org what he's been up to today. The question catches him totally off guard, making him jump as he tries to get his head back in the game, and he eventually explains that he took a job to track down some criminals in the forest. He reaches into his gear to show her the wanted poster, saying the target is a rough-looking guy with a massive 12 million bounty on his head. Alicia takes a look at the poster and mentions the guy looks familiar, asking if he's that giant ape monster from the bestiary books. Org looks a bit stressed by the comparison and has to clarify that the guy is definitely a human criminal, not a monster. But he explains the target is actually a man called Garroth the Battleaxe. He's a total beast who stands over piles of his enemies, and turns out he used to lead a bunch of former mercenaries. He's known for being incredibly strong and ruthless, even wiping out an entire 30-man squad sent by the kingdom. Org adds that the group does some pretty gross stuff, like kidnapping people and selling them into slavery in other countries, which completely freaks out his teammates. They start waving their arms and shouting for him to stop talking about such heavy topics in front of her. Org realizes he messed up the mood and gets all red in the face, stammering as he tells Alicia to just make sure she stays safe. Alicia gives him a blank look and says she understands, promising she won't go anywhere near the forest, right as she starts walking away while wishing him luck on his mission. Org panics and yells for her to wait for a second because he actually has something else for her. He blushes like crazy and holds out a giant, beautiful bouquet of flowers, telling her he's been wanting to give her this. Org explains he just happened to find the flowers while he was out in the forest. He thought they looked rare enough to pick, but then he starts feeling a bit self-conscious about a guy like him carrying a bouquet around. He holds them out and says he wanted Alicia to have them. Alicia looks totally caught off guard by the gesture, but she quickly recognizes them as Mizai flowers and tells him he did an amazing job finding something so rare. She asks if he's actually sure about giving them away since they're expensive potion ingredients that would fetch a high price, and Org just blushes and says of course he's sure. He tells her he picked them specifically for her, but then he starts to panic. He gets all red and flustered, trying to backpedal and tell her that wasn't what he meant. He claims he isn't hurting for cash anyway, so Alicia just shrugs it off and says she'll take them if he's cool with it. Later on at the mansion, Rand the turtle spirit can't help but comment on how Alicia is way too dense for her own good. As Alicia heads inside, Rand keeps going and says even a turtle like him could figure out what Org was trying to do. Alicia just looks at him like he's crazy and asks what on earth he's even talking about. The lock clicks and the door swings open. Someone realizes they have the right place and tells the others to look at what they found. A group of thugs barges right into the mansion. One of them laughs about how the door wasn't even locked while Alicia just stands there in total shock. From the shadows, a voice sounds skeptical, asking if a kid like this is really the alchemist they were sent to find. The men keep whispering among themselves, wondering if they actually have the right target since she looks way too young for the job. Garroth just sits there leaning on his weapon. He says it doesn't even matter who she is, especially since they've already been paid a ton of gold to grab her. Alicia starts to stir and groans as she regains consciousness. The bandit leader looks down at her, mocking her and asking if the little lady is finally awake. She looks up and the color completely drains from her face. She can't believe who is standing right over her. Terrified, Alicia asks what the giant ape is doing there. The man just grumbles that calling someone a monster the moment you meet them is a pretty gutsy move. She tries to keep her cool even though she's shaking, explaining that she only knows him because she saw his face on a wanted poster recently. Alicia asks what a guy with such a massive bounty would even want with her. Garroth just smirks, seemingly impressed that she actually knows exactly who he is. Garroth stands there with a huge grin, introducing himself as the great bandit known as Garroth of the Battleaxe, while he flexes his weapon, showing the terrified Alicia that she was brought here for a reason. One of the guys points a finger at her and explains that her kidnapping was actually a job requested by someone else, making the image of Aaron, the workshop head, pop into the conversation. He apparently went around complaining that Alicia was a monster-class alchemist who was going to steal every single one of his customers if she opened a shop, leading Alicia to realize this is definitely her old boss's doing. She looks completely stressed out, thinking about the confidentiality agreement she had with him and how this whole mess started. The bandit leader doesn't care about her drama though. He looms over her and tells her flat out that she only has two options to choose from. Garroth drops down to one knee, looking her right in the eye. He explains the first choice is for her to get sold off as a slave, which makes Alicia turn pale as he asks if she can imagine what eventually happens to people in that situation. She manages to find her voice and shakily asks what the other option is, hoping it's better than the first. Garroth laughs and tells her the second thing is simple. She joins his crew and starts making potions for their group. He explains that since they used to be mercenaries, they know better than anyone just how important a good supply of potions really is. Alicia looks at the floor, realizing she has no real choice here. She tells them she understands and will cooperate. The leader just smiles, saying he's glad she's being so reasonable about the whole thing. Alicia follows the bandit. Knowing this is a serious situation, she tells herself she'll never let her skills be used for anything bad, so she decides to play along for now, acting like she's listening while secretly watching for a chance to bolt. They reach a massive complex and Alicia asks about the facility, which catches the bandit off guard for a second. He explains they're deep in the Forest of Fours at an old potion lab that everyone thinks is abandoned, but it's actually the perfect hideout since it's got thick walls to keep all the local monsters away. On top of that, there's a hidden barrier around the whole place, making it basically impossible for anyone to find them. The guy gives her a smug look and says she shouldn't even bother trying to run or wait for help because nobody is coming, leaving Alicia standing there shaking. She tries to keep it together and tells herself it's fine. She keeps her head down, reminding herself that there's still hope because she isn't alone in this. Suddenly she spots Rand tied up in heavy chains. She calls out his name and he looks back at her, relieved she's finally there. Rand starts apologizing, saying he's sorry for letting this happen even though he was right there with her. But Alicia just tells him she's happy he's safe, though Rand admits he didn't exactly get away without taking some hits. He explains that ever since that attack at the mansion, he hasn't been able to use his magic right. And to make things worse, they stole his jewel so he can't even transform back, making Alicia realize they're in a real corner. She tries to shake off the panic, telling herself there's gotta be something they can do to escape when a voice from the shadows asks if the bandits caught her too, catching her completely off guard. The guy introduces himself as Luke while showing off his own set of heavy shackles, and he sits there looking pretty calm for a guy who says he's just waiting to be sold off to some criminals. Luke says her name as the bandits outside keep yelling at each other to stop being lazy and get back to work. So Alicia just gives him a polite nod and a quick reply, trying to stay respectful even while tied up on the floor. Alicia answers Luke by telling him she's an alchemist, but Luke just stares at her with this blank, pretty boy look before leaning in way too close to her face. It's honestly kind of a lot. Alicia just stands there frozen, thinking he looks like some prince from a storybook. He keeps staring without saying a word, so she nervously asks if something is wrong with her face or something. Luke just gives her a little smile and says it's just because it's their first time meeting, which Alicia finds pretty awkward. She tries to move the conversation along by introducing Rand, who actually speaks up to say hello too. Luke thinks it's crazy rare to see a talking turtle, but Alicia has to correct him and explain he's a spirit. The bandits keep yelling at each other outside the door while Luke finishes catching her up on the situation. And the reality of it all starts to sink in. Alicia realizes, if they don't find a way out now, they're basically stuck with these criminals. She looks over at Rand and asks for the bad news again, just confirming that his powers are still completely gone. Luke starts explaining that he's been feeling completely off ever since he got hit by something. Turns out it was a magic inhibiting needle, and these things are no joke. It's a rare magic tool you can't even buy in regular stores because it messes with mana flow to stop anyone from using their skills. He looks down at his wrists and realizes they actually built those same needles right into the handcuffs they're wearing. Alicia mentions she heard the thieves gossiping earlier, so she asks Luke if he can tell her anything else that might help. It turns out Luke has been stuck as a prisoner for a pretty long time, which means he's picked up a lot of local info while being held there. Alicia gets a bit hopeful since he's so knowledgeable. She figures there has to be a hint for their escape in something he's seen, and Rand totally agrees. She says they can just call it fate that they met like this, then asks if he wants to team up and find a way out together. Luke doesn't even hesitate, he just gives her a little smile and says sure. He acts like it's no big deal, saying he's got nothing better to do anyway, which makes Alicia think he's way too relaxed for a guy in a dungeon. Moving on, Luke starts going through everything he knows, hoping some of it is the key they need to finally get out of there. Luke starts opening up about the situation, mentioning that the reason the bandits are even hiding out in this area is because the ship they used to flee the country is actually broken. They've got it stashed in the woods undergoing repairs right now. He points out that if they want to make a break for it, they have to move before that ship is ready to sail. Alicia asks if he knows exactly when the repairs will be finished, but Luke tells her he's honestly not sure about the timing, and that's not the only problem, since Garroth is sitting on 2 massive level 4 skills, Axe and Super Strength. Alicia can't believe the guy is that stacked, but Luke keeps going, explaining that the rest of the crew is just as sharp and they don't really leave any openings. The whole place is reinforced like a fortress, and there's only one way in or out, which is heavily guarded. Luke admits that getting out of there alive is looking pretty difficult, but Alicia isn't backing down. She says she's going to give this escape everything she's got. She looks down at her cuffed hands, basically saying that if her first plan fails to get them out, she's prepared to use her most lethal poison potion to take out every last bandit, even if it means she doesn't make it out herself. Luke hears Alicia's extreme backup plan and can't believe his ears. He just looks at her and says it's totally insane. He follows up by telling her that she's got a way more radical personality than he expected. But the conversation gets cut short because one of the bandits grabs a bottle and loses his mind, shouting about how the potion Alicia brewed is actually amazing. The guy is completely hyped, yelling to the crew that Alicia actually pulled off a rank 5 potion, something he's never even seen before with his appraisal skill. Garroth watches from the side, looking pretty satisfied as he tells Alicia that her skills definitely live up to all the rumors he's heard. One of the lackeys tries to downplay it, saying the quality is only that high because of the magic water from this land. While Rand just stands there watching, the little turtle spirit leans in and asks Alicia what the move is, suggesting that since she's finished brewing, she's basically ready to go on a rampage. Alicia immediately shuts that idea down, glancing back at the crowd of bandits and pointing out there are way too many of them to take on at once. She looks pretty drained from the work and announces that she's done brewing for the day, but she's still worried about those needles Luke mentioned, and suddenly, a voice barks at Rand to spit out the jewel and stop wasting time, calling them out for being just as cunning as Luke warned they would be. The supplies on the table show that Alicia spent the day brewing nothing but heal potions and explosives. Because the bandits provided all the ingredients themselves, she never had a single opening to make anything for her own escape. She looks pretty stressed out, quietly worrying to herself about how she won't be able to use any fast-acting poison, which catches Garroth's attention. He asks if she said something, but she plays it off immediately and tells him it was nothing at all. Garroth just grins while looking at the hall, saying that with this many potions, they won't have any trouble even if knights or adventurers show up. Rand leans down from her head and whispers that it looks like she won't be making her big move for a while. And then Garroth chimed in, suggesting that if she really wants to get away safely, she should look into making an awakening potion. Alicia explains that it only lasts a short time but draws out a person's true sleeping power, though Garroth just brushes it off and says he doesn't need it. He decides they've done enough work for the day and orders his men to cuff Luke and haul him back to his room, leaving the two of them locked up again, where Alicia finally asks Luke what they should even do now. Alicia stands by the door looking completely stressed out, thinking to herself that she needs to find a way to make that potion, but Luke just smiles and tells her to relax and not be so impatient. He keeps the charm up, telling her that she's actually ruining her cute face by looking so worried. Alicia isn't having it at all. She tells him she doesn't need that right now and just wants some real advice before flat out telling him to spare her the flattery since it's not helping their situation. Luke looks a bit defeated and asks Rand if his word is really that hard to trust. Rand tells Luke not to sweat it because people like that are always the same, while Alicia stays focused on the problem. She says that everything would be easier if they just knew what the bandits were planning at this exact moment, which makes Luke perk up, saying he might actually have an idea about that. Alicia can't believe it and asks if he's for real, but he just nods, even though Alicia has a feeling that whatever the bandits are up to, it probably has nothing to do with the potions she's been making. Alicia stands by the barrels while the bandits watch her. One of them asks how she managed to get all those materials in a single day. Garroth sits there with his arms crossed, looking serious. He tells Alicia he needs to confirm something with her. His eye gets a sharp glint as he leans in, asking her if it's really true she has a potion that's just like booze. Alicia keeps her cool and says yes, clarifying that the specific name for it is a confusion potion. She explains that despite the name, it doesn't have side effects. It just makes humans feel intoxicated like they've been drinking. She mentions that since it's alcohol-free, people use it to quit drinking, but Garroth is already losing his patience. Garroth slams his fist down and yells that he doesn't give a damn about any of that. He explains they haven't been able to get into town lately, which means they haven't even had a decent meal. Garroth looks completely stressed while Alicia and Rand watch him. He shouts that they've all got a lot of pent-up frustration. The rest of the thugs start getting rowdy behind him, yelling that they don't care what it is as long as it gets them drunk. Garroth and his crew go wild, pumping their fists and demanding their drinks. Garroth yells at Alicia to stop talking and just start making the potions already. Alicia quickly agrees, trying to get them to settle down while she gets to work. She tells the rowdy group she's starting right now, so they just need to stay cool for a bit. Looking at the chaotic scene, Alicia realizes Luke was totally right about these guys. It's clear they're just acting out because they're desperate for some alcohol. Luke had mentioned earlier that while their city contacts can sneak in food, trying to haul heavy wine barrels into a hidden forest camp is basically impossible. Alicia is honestly surprised by how fast the bandits fell for her booze potion trick. Still, she's glad it worked since it means the first stage of their escape plan is officially a go. Now she just needs to find a way to use that special item Org gave her, and they might actually have a shot at getting out of there. Meanwhile, back at the Adventurers Guild, someone yells out in total shock after hearing the news that Alicia is missing. The lady from the inn explains the situation to the guild members, telling them she went to the mansion to deliver some ingredients but found the front door wide open. She looks completely worried as she tells them that when she checked the house, there were clear signs of a struggle. Back at the guild, Org looks pretty stressed out. He's starting to think something actually happened to Alicia. Meanwhile, Alicia gets to work on her plan, mincing up some chidori grass into a fine powder. She carefully separates the stem from a vital mushroom and keeps the cap for the next part of the recipe. After tossing everything together, she pours in some of Lando's magic water to top it off. Alicia focuses and activates her synthesis skill, making the cup glow with a bright light. The result is a rank 5 confusion potion. It's basically superpowered booze that'll wreck anyone who drinks it. The bandits completely lose it and start lunging for the cup. But Alicia tells them to wait for a second. She tells the rowdy crowd that she's going to prove it's safe by taking the first sip herself. Alicia takes a big gulp while Garroth watches closely. He notes that she seems totally fine after drinking it. Alicia tells them that since it's such a high rank, they really need to water it down before they start drinking. Alicia keeps a cool head and explains that she's totally fine because she has a natural tolerance for all kinds of potions. She points out that for any normal person, the stuff is strong enough to cause instant confusion from intoxication, leaving Garroth staring at her in total disbelief. He's sweating and can't help but ask what the hell is wrong with her body. Alicia ignores his shock and orders the thugs to start diluting the mix before they drink, and one guy salutes, taking a massive gulp before shouting about how delicious it is. He's completely blown away by the flavor. The other guys start freaking out, asking what this stuff even is since it's nothing like any booze they've ever had. The whole room erupts in shock as the word spreads about the crazy drink, and even Garroth starts to cave, admitting it looks safe while his eyes stay glued to the mugs. It's way stronger than water. The bandits start a massive party, cheering and knocking back drinks while Alicia watches them with a sneaky laugh. She can't help but think to herself that this plan is actually going way better than she ever imagined. Garroth is clearly dying for a drink but manages to hold himself back. He's staying focused, watching his men closely to see if the potion has any side effects before he tries it. Alicia watches him from the side and realizes the guy is way more cautious than he looks. It's going to take a bit more time before she can pull off the next part of her plan. Suddenly, Garroth turns to her and drops the act, asking what her real angle is. He tells her straight up that there's no way she'd go through all this trouble for them without having some kind of hidden motive. Alicia is caught off guard and thinks the guy is actually pretty sharp. She plays it off and says she's just trying to prove her worth as a member of the gang during this job. Then she takes it a step further, asking if he'll finally let her walk around the facility freely. The other bandits immediately lose it, shouting that she's just a newbie trying to find a way to run away. They keep heckling her, but she just sighs and tells them how much it sucks being stuck in the same room all day. Garroth thinks about it for a second and then says he'll let it slide, which leaves Luke in the background completely shocked that the boss actually agreed. As he walks off, Garroth adds that she looks way too slow to make a run for it anyway, leaving Alicia right where she wanted to be. Garroth walks off with his guys, telling Alicia he'll let her move around as long as a guard is with her, essentially giving her a taste of freedom. But then he suddenly swings his massive axe right at her, the blade moving so fast it shatters the iron chains right off her wrists. He stands over her and says they're a group held together by iron bonds, leaving Alicia staring up at his terrifying face while he warns her that if she ever tries to double-cross them, she's going to regret it. She forces a smile and stammers that she totally gets it, but inside she's losing it because the guy is just way too scary. There is no way she is staying as this dude's servant, so she makes up her mind right then that she's finding a way to get out of there. As she walks back, one of the bandits hanging by the door welcomes them back, and inside the room, Luke is just lounging on the bed like he's on vacation. He looks up and asks her if everything went okay with the boss. Alicia just stares at him, wondering how the guy can be so relaxed while she's holding onto Calva and trying to process everything. She tells him the bandits loved the potions, and because of that she finally got her chains taken off. Luke stays relaxed on the bed, looking back at Alicia and asking if getting those chains off really changes anything for them. He points out that gaining the bandits' trust makes it easier to move around, but Alicia cuts in and tells him she already has a plan for how to handle the situation. Luke just closes his eyes and tells her that if she says so, he isn't going to worry about it, making Alicia wonder if he's even taking this seriously. He asks if she's curious about his own thoughts, but then just decides to leave everything up to her. Alicia looks down at him, getting the vibe that he isn't so much trusting her as he is just totally indifferent about escaping this place. And she can't help but wonder if Luke even wants to go back to wherever he came from in the first place. She pushes those thoughts aside for a second because there's something more immediate she needs to tell him. She clears her throat to get his attention and tells him that thanks to the advice he gave her earlier, she actually managed to make some real progress with the bandits. Luke just waves his hand and gives a lazy smile, telling her it was no big deal at all. With the thanks out of the way, Alicia stands over him with a totally serious look and asks if he could please start taking his clothes off. Luke just stares at her, his mind going completely blank. The request is so out of left field he can barely process what he just heard, and before he can even react, Alicia reaches out and starts tugging at his vest. Luke panics, yelling for her to hold on because he has absolutely no clue what she's doing, but she doesn't stop, keeping a totally straight face while he frantically asks why she's suddenly trying to strip him down right there. Alicia calmly explains that she just wants to thank him for the solid advice he gave her earlier. Luke isn't buying it though, he shouts back, wondering why her way of saying thanks is being so aggressive. He looks away, face turning bright red while his heart starts racing. He thinks to himself that she's skipping way too many steps here. Alicia just tilts her head, asking if what she's doing is really that weird, making her intentions a bit clearer as she holds up a bowl of water and a cloth. She points out that since his hands are tied, he can't exactly wash himself, so she figured she'd help him clean up. Rand chimed in from the side, looking pretty miserable in his own chains while agreeing that not being able to wash feels gross, so this is at least something. Alicia looks over and asks who actually came up with this specific idea for a thank you gift, and Rand is quick to admit that the plan was all him. Alicia gets a bit worried and asks if she's being a bother, but Luke quickly tells her he actually appreciates it. Turns out he was starting to get self-conscious about how he smelled anyway, so she starts wiping him down with the damp cloth. As she works, she can't help but notice his build, telling him he's actually in surprisingly good shape for a guy who's been locked up. Luke looks away, feeling pretty embarrassed while explaining he's been training with a sword since he was a kid, which explains the muscles. Alicia just stares at him, and she asks if something is wrong, totally missing the vibe of the situation. Luke starts to panic, telling her that if she leans in any closer they'll basically be touching, and that's a bit much for him. But he just can't believe how she has absolutely zero sense of danger when it comes to being around guys. The next few days go by with the bandits forcing Alicia to brew confusion potions around the clock, though she spends her time walking through the hideout, watching the drunk guards, and memorizing where they keep the keys to gather everything she needs for a getaway. She watches the thugs pass by and decides it's finally time to make her move. Luke looks over and asks what her actual plan is for getting them out of there. So Alicia turns to him and asks if he's actually getting interested in the details of her strategy, while Luke just smiles, saying he was just getting a bit worried about how things were going and figured he should at least hear what she's thinking. Luke can't help but think this girl has absolutely zero sense of danger, while Alicia's over there thinking about how her trust in him has completely hit rock bottom, but she's not letting that stop her, as she pulls something out and tells Luke she's found exactly what they need to finally get out of there. She shows him a bunch of mizai flowers, explaining that these magical plants are the main ingredient for making heavy-duty sleep potions. Then Calva chimes in to ask if those are the same flowers Org gave her, leaving Luke standing there totally confused and wondering who this Org guy even is. Alicia confirms it, mentioning she was lucky enough to keep them in her pocket instead of her bag, so the bandits never even realized she had them. And since the bandits are already distracted and partying while they wait for more confusion potions, their guard is basically at zero. So Alicia's plan is to mix a secret sleep potion into the next batch she brews to knock every single one of them out cold. She explains that once they're all sleeping, she'll grab the jewels and the keys to their chains so they can make a break for it. But Luke just looks at her, admitting that while the whole idea sounds pretty bold and risky, he has to ask if she's really prepared to go through with something this crazy. Luke looks her right in the eye and gets serious, telling Alicia that if this plan of hers fails, they are both definitely getting killed. He sits there in his chains and mentions he's been thinking about something for a while now, leading Alicia to cut in and ask him point blank, does he even want to escape this place at all? Luke admits that while escaping sounds fine, he honestly has nowhere left to go, which leaves Alicia standing there completely speechless, and then he drops a total bombshell. He's pretty sure it was his own family who had him kidnapped in the first place. He remembers the meal he was having before everything went south, explaining how they drugged his food, and the next thing he knew, he woke up trapped in this dump without a clue of what happened. So he tells her there's no way he's going back to people like that. A realization that clearly hits Alicia and Calva pretty hard. Luke closes his eyes, sounding almost defeated as he talks about the reality of being sold off as a slave. But then he tries to laugh it off, saying maybe a new life in a new land wouldn't be so bad, while Alicia just watches him, not buying his fake smile for a second. Alicia looks at Luke with total sympathy, asking him to confirm if his own flesh and blood really sold him out. She looks down, finally getting why he doesn't have much drive to break out of this place. But then she looks him in the eye and tells him straight up that she's different. She is definitely getting out of there. Her gaze turns sharp as she admits she doesn't have a home to go back to either, which leads her to explain that unlike him, she actually has a place of her own that she built from the ground up. So Luke just stares at her for a second, looking a bit surprised before he quietly says he hears her. He gives her a tired but genuine smile, telling her that if she's that determined, he won't do anything to stop her. Meanwhile, outside the cell, the rest of the bandit camp is dead quiet until the guys on guard duty start feeling a heavy wave of sleepiness hitting them. Alicia and Luke peek out from the door to see the bandits slumped over their drinks. Alicia realizes her knockout potion is finally doing its job, and Calva hops along as they make their move, commenting on how the entire group is completely passed out on the floor. Alicia explains that she purposely made the sleeping potion weaker. She also set it up to have a delayed effect, so she figures the bandits let their guard down and drank the whole thing since they didn't feel anything right away. Walking past the room full of passed-out guys, she tells the others that they've finally reached the right spot, and staring at the sleeping bandit leader, she says the first thing they need to do is get Rand's gem back. Rand asks if she's really going to be okay doing this. Alicia says that since her hands are free now, she's got this. She remembers seeing him put the gem in his pocket earlier, so she moves in closer to the sleeping giant. The guy lets out a massive snore that almost makes her heart stop. She freezes for a second, totally on edge. Once things settle, she starts carefully reaching into his pocket, trying her best not to wake him up while she finally grabs the gem and holds it up. She says the next step is finding the handcuff keys in the back, but she suddenly realizes she made a massive mistake. She accidentally picked up the giant battle axe instead of the keys. Alicia nearly loses her mind when she realizes she grabbed a giant axe instead of the keys. She barely keeps it from hitting the floor, shaking while she carefully leans the heavy weapon back against the table. The bandit leader is still out cold, snot bubble and all, which gives her just enough time to grab the actual keys and get to work. There's a sharp click as the metal locks finally snap open, and Luke stretches his arms out, looking totally relieved. He tells Alicia he finally feels light again and thanks her for getting those things off, but Rand isn't letting her off the hook, telling her she was being way too careless with that axe. Alicia knows he's right and says they need to move fast, so the group sneaks toward the exit. They stop when they see the main gate. Alicia points out that the guards there definitely didn't drink any of her potion and are wide awake. Rand looks at the guys blocking the way and asks Alicia what the move is. He wants to know if she's planning on just charging them head-on. Alicia shakes her head, saying that's a bad idea because those guards probably have needles that can mess with her magic, so she huddles down in the bushes with Luke to look over her supplies. She realizes she has one specific trick left for a situation like this, and with a serious look on her face, she tells the guys she's going to use her explosive potion to clear the path. Alicia pulls out a potion bottle with a look that means business. Luke is completely caught off guard and asks her where she even got something like that. She explains that she actually stopped by a warehouse on their way into the camp and managed to grab it then, planning ahead for a moment just like this. With a proud little smirk, she mentions that the shed over there is actually where she's been keeping all the explosive potions she made recently. The plan is simple. She's going to toss the potion to blow the shed sky high so they can slip away while the guards are busy putting out the fire. Rand thinks it's a pretty intense way to handle things, while Luke just realizes she's way more chaotic than he thought. Alicia notices their faces and asks why they're looking at her like that. She promises it's fine because the walls are thick and the fire won't spread to the trees. Luke realizes there's no talking her out of it, so he just sighs and tells her he won't stop her. She lets the potion fly. A second later, the entire building disappears in a massive, earth-shaking blast that lights up the whole area. The bandits at the gate absolutely lose it, screaming in terror as they try to figure out why their storage room just turned into a fireball. Everything happens so fast that Alicia gets knocked back by the force, but Luke is right there to catch her before she can crash into the dirt. Alicia looks a little rattled as she thanks him for the save. Luke just looks down at her, and asks if she's actually okay after pulling a stunt that big. Luke looks down at Alicia and thinks to himself that he really didn't expect the blast to reach them. Rand adds that it's a good thing Luke was there to catch her before she hit the ground. Alicia looks up at Luke and tells him his reflexes are seriously impressive. Luke just tries to act cool about it, but then a bandit nearby starts yelling, making one of the guys run past them in a total panic, screaming for everyone to hurry up and bring some water to the fire. The bandit shouts back while sprinting away. He's so focused on the burning building that he doesn't even notice the prisoners standing right there, giving Alicia the perfect chance to get moving. She tells the guys everything went exactly as planned and it's time to disappear. As they start their escape, Luke looks over and asks her what the move is once they actually get away from the camp. Alicia doesn't even hesitate. She explains that she's going to look at the local plants to figure out their exact location and find the quickest route back to the city. Luke stops for a second and asks her if she can actually pull something like that off just by looking at some weeds. She gives him a big smile and says it's no problem because she's already memorized the entire layout of where every magical plant in this forest grows. Rand just sighs and tells her that whenever she sounds that confident, it actually makes him feel a lot more worried about what's about to happen. Alicia tells the guys she doesn't get the worry, since all they have to do now is slip through the front gate and she's cut off by a sudden noise from the handles. She stops in her tracks, wondering what's going on, when the massive gate starts swinging open all by itself, catching her completely off guard. Right there on the other side is a bandit sitting on a supply cart, looking just as confused as they are. Alicia's face goes totally pale. She can't believe a supply guy chose this exact moment to show up and ruin everything. The bandit wastes no time and starts screaming for his boss, yelling that he found the alchemists trying to sneak out. He raises a glowing bracelet to his face, shouting for backup to get down there as fast as possible. Luke realizes the guy is using a magic radio, and Alicia knows that means the bandit leader will be on top of them in seconds. So, the bandit lunges at her with a smirk, saying he'll at least make sure she can't run since she looks like an easy target. But before he can even touch her, Luke snaps off a high kick that catches the guy right in the jaw and sends him flying. Alicia stares at Luke in total shock after that kick, asking him if he's actually some kind of secret powerhouse. Luke just stretches his leg out like it's no big deal, casually telling her he's okay at holding his own, but his face goes serious as he says they need to move fast, though he quickly realizes they might already be out of time. Just as he says that, a massive shadow cuts through the air, forcing them both to dive for the ground, as a giant battle axe slams into the wall behind them, leaving Alicia pale as she realizes exactly who that weapon belongs to. Garroth shows up looking absolutely livid, screaming at the top of his lungs about how they're going to pay for this. The huge axe spins through the air with enough force to wreck anything in its path, showing just how dangerous the situation has become as Garroth lands right in front of them, telling the pair they've really messed up now. Alicia starts to freak out because their path is blocked, and Luke calmly admits that running away just isn't an option anymore. She asks him what they're supposed to do then, and Luke just reaches for his sword, saying they'll just have to fight. Alicia is starting to lose it, pointing out that Garroth is way out of their league with 2 level 4 combat skills. She's honestly not sure they have any chance of winning this, but Luke just tells her it's okay, trying his best to keep her calm while the enemies close in. He pulls his sword and casually mentions that even though he might not look the part, he actually has a level 5 swordsmanship skill. The bandits don't care about his talk and charge in with a loud battle cry, but Luke doesn't even blink as they swing their blades at him. He just says, "Here we go," and moves right through their attacks like he's going for a stroll. He catches the first guy with a clean strike that leaves the bandit gasping for air, and immediately follows up with a brutal kick that sends another thug flying across the room. Watching him work, Alicia can't help but admit he really is as strong as he claimed to be. Luke just gives her a modest smile, telling her that it's honestly just the skill doing most of the heavy lifting. The little turtle spirit Rand looks on, wondering if having a level 5 skill is actually as rare as it seems. Alicia watches Luke, remembering that his skill is supposed to boost his physical stats whenever he has a sword in hand. She knows she's in no position to judge, but seeing him stand his ground against the group makes her realize just how insane it is for someone his age to actually have a level 5 skill. She figures he must have spent every single day since he was a kid training himself to the bone to get that strong. Garroth spits on the ground, annoyed that his low-level thugs are getting wrecked so easily, and yells at his guys to get moving. He orders his men to go grab Alicia and beat her half to death. While he takes care of the kid personally, Luke doesn't even flinch, just nodding like he's totally fine with those odds while Alicia and Calva freak out. Alicia points at the spreading flames, screaming that they have bigger problems because the whole building is about to burn down, but Garroth just laughs it off, saying their getaway ship is already waiting for them outside. He tells her they're going to finish punishing the traitors right now, and then vanish before anyone can stop them. Luke calls out to Alicia, looking totally focused, as he gets ready to jump into the middle of the mess. The sound of metal hitting metal rings out as Luke catches Garroth's giant axe right on his blade. Garroth just laughs, looking completely unhinged while telling the kid that he's the only opponent he needs to worry about. He tells Luke to just sit back and watch Alicia get dragged away, but Luke isn't having it. He yells for Alicia to run and stay safe for a while since he'll be joining her soon. The two of them start trading blows like crazy. Alicia watches from the side, stunned that Luke is actually holding his own against a monster like Garroth. Even Rand is impressed by the show, but Alicia snaps out of it. She tells Luke to focus on his fight and leave the rest to her and the little guy. The other thugs start closing in on her with nasty grins. They tell her she's got nowhere left to run, and they're going to make her wish she never existed. Rand spots one of them holding a magic jamming needle. Alicia realizes that if she gets poked with that thing, she's going to lose her magic and be totally helpless again. Rand asks her what the plan is. Alicia gets a serious look on her face, reaching for something in her bag while pulling out a high-level explosion potion. She says it's finally time to see what this thing can actually do. The bandits just stand there looking completely confused. They have no idea what Alicia is planning as she stops running, and the leader yells for everyone to move in and grab her. She casually tosses a small bottle over her shoulder while the thugs get caught in a massive explosion. Alicia covers her face as the blast sends bodies flying everywhere in a cloud of smoke, but a couple of the guys manage to scramble back up. They're furious, calling her a girl with no aim and promising to tear her apart. So Alicia just looks at them from behind and asks if there are only two left. She doesn't seem worried at all, even when she points out that she's officially out of explosion potion. She adjusts her gear and tells them that under normal circumstances, she would be totally trapped with no way to fight back. The guys think they finally have the upper hand, but then Alicia tells them to look up. The two thugs stop in their tracks, staring at the sky and wondering what could possibly be above them. Just then, Rand's spirit form shows up looking like a massive, shredded turtle falling straight out of the air. The bandits can't even move before he slams into the dirt, crushing them both instantly and ending the fight right there. One of the bandits looks up in total shock. He can't understand why a giant turtle is suddenly falling out of the sky, and the whole group gets flattened instantly. Alicia stands over them and explains that she used the potion's smoke to hide the fact that she tossed Rand, who was carrying a magic gem, right onto their heads. She looks at the guys passed out on the ground and tells Rand that for a last-minute plan, things actually turned out great. But then she notices Rand looks a bit off. She asks him if he's feeling alright after taking such a massive dive. Rand admits that being tossed through the air brought back bad memories of kids having contests to see who could throw him the furthest. Alicia feels awful and promises she'll never do it to him again. Moving on to the other fight, Garroth is absolutely losing his mind, letting out a huge roar as he brings his giant axe down with everything he's got. The weapon slams into the ground with a massive crash that sends dirt and rocks flying everywhere, but Luke is way too fast for him. Garroth just stands there swearing because he can't seem to land a single hit on the kid. He screams at Luke to stop jumping around like a bug, while Luke just keeps casually dodging every single swing coming his way. Another thug tries to jump in with a heavy attack, but Luke doesn't even break a sweat, telling them that with such wild, heavy swings, there's no way they'll ever touch him. Garroth starts swinging his axe like a madman, creating a literal whirlwind of steel around himself. Alicia watches from the side, looking completely stressed out by the raw power he's throwing around. She realizes that Luke's ability to dodge those heavy hits is actually insane. She considers jumping in to help him out, but quickly decides she'd only get in his way. Suddenly, a heavy strike catches Garroth right in the mouth. He lets out a choked-up sound as he's nearly lifted off his feet by the impact. Garroth ends up on his knees, clutching his face in total disbelief that he's been tagged. Luke just stands there casually, looking down at the bandit leader as if he's barely broken a sweat. Still trying to act tough, Garroth growls that he's the legendary Garroth the Battle-Axe, but Luke just stares at him with a look that says he doesn't care at all. Garroth keeps talking, bragging about how he was known as the strongest mercenary back during the war. Luke doesn't even let him finish before asking him what that's supposed to prove now. Garroth is absolutely fuming at being talked down to by a kid, but Luke just shrugs, explaining that fighting in a huge war is a totally different thing than a one-on-one duel. Luke admits that he only knows how to handle this because he spent every single day getting beaten half to death in training. Otherwise, he wouldn't have known how this would go. He finally tells Garroth to just give up and surrender, while the bandit leader grinds his teeth in pure frustration, looking totally spent. Luke finishes him off verbally, saying that resisting anymore is just a waste of time and that a pro like Garroth should already know he's completely outmatched. Luke keeps it real, admitting that it's true, he probably can't bring himself to actually kill a guy like Garroth, and the bandit leader gets this nasty look on his face. thinking he's found a weakness he can exploit to turn the tables. He suddenly lunges right at Alicia with his axe raised, screaming that if he's going down, he's taking her with him. The guy is completely losing it, shouting Alicia's name as he swings with everything he's got left in the tank. He growls that he'll never forgive them, and he's determined to drag her into the grave right alongside him. Alicia is totally panicked and asks Rand if there's anything he can do. The little spirit replies that they don't really have a choice but to fight back. But suddenly Luke is right there in his face, telling Garroth that he's being a really sore loser for going after a non-combatant. Luke just stares him down with a cold look, saying the bandit's name one last time before he closes the gap in a blur, and delivers a heavy hit that sends Garroth flying. The bandit leader can't even react before he's catching a face full of steel. Garroth ends up flat on his back, totally out of the fight. Luke walks over and says he's sorry, admitting he didn't think the guy would get that desperate. Alicia stays on the ground for a second, looking up at Luke and thanking him for saving her life. She's clearly relieved the fight is over. Luke stands over her and says it finally looks safe enough for them to make a run for it. Alicia jumps up and says they should head for town immediately, but then a loud voice yells out from the gateway and she completely freezes up. She looks around in a panic, wondering if there's someone else hiding nearby. She gets into a defensive stance, asking if more of Garroth's guys are showing up. She can't believe how many of them there are, but it's not a bandit. Org and the Red Eagles are standing there, and the leader looks totally shocked to see her alive. Org walks over and tells her he heard at the guild that she went missing. He's been worried sick, so Alicia just bows and apologizes. She casually mentions that she was kidnapped by bandits, and everyone just stares at her, shocked she's being so chill about it. The whole group starts freaking out and buzzing around her, completely losing their minds over her crazy story. Org looks her over and says she doesn't seem to be hurt, but he's still sweating and asks if she's really all right. Alicia closes her eyes and takes a breath, telling everyone she's doing just fine, but Org still looks pretty shaken up, asking her again if she's really okay while Luke watches from the side. Org looks over at Luke and asks if he's a friend, so Alicia explains that he's an adventurer too, and she formally introduces him as Luke, who just gives a friendly smile and says hi to the group. She goes on to tell them that he was captured by the bandits just like she was, adding that he's actually super strong and saved her life more than a few times. Org just stares at the guy, thinking he's way too good-looking for his own good. Alicia asks what the team is even doing out here, and Org explains they were searching for her while also hunting for Garroth. But then he mentions they heard a massive explosion nearby. He says the whole place just started burning down before they could even get close. One of the other guys mentions it's weird, because a facility this big should have been easy to spot from the start, and then Org points out a weird, long object on the ground, wondering if that's the magic tool that was hiding the base with a barrier. Alicia looks down at the smashed pieces of the magic tool. It's the one that was hiding the base behind a barrier, and now it's totally useless after that explosion. She mentions the damage, but Org tells her not to worry and says his team will handle the rest. Org stands there looking pretty drained, thinking to himself that even though he offered to clean up, he looks over at Garroth. The guy is absolutely wrecked on the ground. It turns out Alicia basically finished the job before they even got there. Later on, the Red Eagles get to work tying up the bandits and marching the whole group back to the town of Torid. They even track down Workshop Chief Aaron. He's the one who ordered the kidnapping in the first place, and now he's in cuffs and losing his mind. The guards don't stop there, rounding up the shady middlemen who were supplying Garroth's crew with food and gear, so the whole gang ends up locked away in the local dungeon. Everyone is screaming and blaming each other from behind the bars, while back at the mansion, things are finally quiet again. The sun is out and a long sigh of relief comes from inside the house because Alicia is finally back in her own bed. She's completely exhausted, just happy to be home after everything that happened. Rand is finally back home and gets right into his little basin, splashing around while saying he can finally have a soak. Alicia is completely wiped out on the bed. She says she's calling it a night because she can't even move another inch, but her mind keeps racing. She remembers back to earlier when she had to leave Luke behind to go talk to the guards, and the way he stood there looking lost, just saying he had no idea what he was supposed to do next. She can't stop thinking about the expression on his face. He looks so down, making her wonder what's really going on with him. Even though they're both free from the bandits now, she tells herself he didn't seem happy at all. It's like something else is weighing on him. So the town square is busy today. People are just hanging out by the fountain. Some kids are running around playing tag and yelling at each other to keep up right behind them. Luke is just sitting by himself. He looks totally drained while remembering some nasty things people said, like someone asking if a kid like him even belongs in a castle. The voices in his head keep going, saying he's only there because the other kids are useless and he's the only one with any real talent. Luke is stuck in a memory of his childhood where everyone used to praise his incredible skills. The maids and knights would always go on about how he was so much better than his brothers, and that constant comparison just made his own family hate him. His brothers used to stand over him, wishing he would just disappear so they wouldn't have to live in his shadow anymore. Back in the present, Luke is still sitting alone by the fountain when Alicia comes running up, shouting his name to get his attention. He looks up and is pretty surprised to see her there, asking what she's doing at the fountain all of a sudden. Alicia is totally out of breath from running, but explains she found him after talking to the guards. She says she has something important she needs to negotiate with him. She gets straight to the point and asks him if he'd be willing to let her hire him for a job. Luke just sits there looking completely blank, not expecting that kind of offer at all. Alicia keeps going, promising that she'll make sure the pay and the working conditions are better than anything else he'd find, and Luke tries to wrap his head around it, asking if she wants him to be some kind of assistant for her potion making. But she tells him right away that's not it. She looks him in the eye and clarifies that what she really needs is for him to be her personal bodyguard. Alicia looks down, thinking over everything that's happened. She tells Luke that in a way, all this trouble was bound to happen, and it was honestly a pretty natural outcome. She admits she didn't really get how her own skills look to everyone else. So to put it simply, she realizes she stands out way too much in a bad way right now. Looking out over the city, she notes that there's a big chance more stuff like this is going to keep happening down the road. They sit by the fountain as she looks him in the eye, telling him that's exactly why she needs his help. Even Rand chips in from her shoulder, asking him to lend a hand too, since it's frustrating to admit he couldn't handle everything alone. Luke stays quiet for a second before asking if the only reason she wants him is because he has that crazy rank V swordsmanship skill. Alicia doesn't lie and tells him that's definitely one of the reasons she's asking, but there's more to it than just his power. She brings up how he mentioned his own family sold him out, and as the water splashes behind them, she explains that she's in a similar spot her own father disowned her, which is the whole reason she ended up in this town alone. Alicia looks down, trying to find the right words to explain her feelings. She starts by telling him she doesn't really know how to say it, but after hearing what he's been through, she just couldn't look at his situation as if it were someone else's problem. She tries to clarify that she isn't just saying she can't leave him alone. Luke cuts in, asking if she just means she feels sorry for him. That sets her off, and she yells back that it isn't like that at all. She gets all worked up, clenching her fists while stuttering out that she just wanted to help for her own reasons. Luke just laughs it off, telling her he knows and that he was only joking to see how she'd react. He turns a bit more quiet, admitting that it's actually been a really long time since anyone told him they actually needed him for anything. A soft smile hits his face. He thinks about it for a second and says the feeling isn't half bad. He reaches his hand out toward her, telling her that if she's really okay with him, he'll take the job as her bodyguard. Alicia's face completely lights up as Luke tells his new boss he'll be in her care from now on. It looks like they've finally got a deal. Alicia happily shouts Luke's name as they seal the deal with a handshake. He replies that the feeling is mutual and he'll be in her care from now on. Org is clearly feeling awkward and fidgety about the whole scene. His teammates can't help but laugh at how much he's letting it get to him. Back at the estate, a letter with a heavy wax seal arrives. The person holding it wonders what kind of news it could possibly be. Count Bromius scans the paper and starts breaking a sweat. He can't believe the Skrull trading company is actually pulling out of his lands. The gravity of the situation starts to sink in, and it's looking pretty obvious that this is going to be a total disaster for his territory. He slams the desk in a rage, yelling about how they survive on trade taxes. Losing the kingdom's biggest company is going to cost him more than he can count. He grabs his cape and stands up in a hurry, shouting that there's no way he's letting that company just walk away and leave his domain. Later on, Alicia is back at the room acting incredibly restless. She's blushing and fidgeting while the others just stand there. She keeps pacing back and forth with this weird energy. It's pretty clear she doesn't know how to handle having a new guy around. Luke watches her and whispers to Rand, asking for some advice since his new boss is currently acting like some kind of rare circus animal. Luke tries to keep things chill, saying it's no wonder she's acting so restless. Today is the big day everything finally gets finished, which explains why Alicia is losing her mind with nerves. A sudden knock at the door makes her jump as a voice asks if they've found the right room, and she knows it's time to go. Standing in front of the massive new building, she can't help but let out a huge shout of excitement. The place looks incredible, and it's really happening. Alicia looks like she's on the verge of tears, just staring at the results of all their hard work while whispering that it's finally done. High above the door, a brand new sign featuring a potion bottle hangs perfectly in place, catching the light and showing everyone that the shop is officially ready. Looking at the rows of clean cabinets and empty shelves inside, Alicia can hardly believe that this beautiful space is actually hers now. The lead worker gives her a confident thumbs up, letting her know they didn't just finish the shop, but the whole mansion is completely renovated and ready to go. Even Rand is stunned by the transformation. He looks up at the massive house and says he barely even recognizes the old place anymore. Alicia just stands there with a peaceful smile, knowing that her life is about to change in a big way because the wait is over. It's officially time to start getting everything ready for the grand opening of her brand new business. A loud voice yells from inside the trading company building, demanding an immediate withdrawal. Count Bromias is losing his cool, slamming the table and shouting Erika's name as her tea flies into the air, but Erika stays completely relaxed, telling the Lord that she simply can't do what he's asking. She hides a smile behind her hand, thinking to herself that the idiot Lord finally showed up just like she expected. Erika explains that it's impossible for merchants to do their jobs safely when monster attacks are constantly increasing, so the Count shouts back that the monster problem is just a temporary thing that doesn't really matter. He crosses his arms and talks big, claiming the soldiers he trained are already out there wiping the monsters out. Erika just takes a calm sip of her tea and mentions that her sources say villages near the forest are still suffering. The Count starts sweating as Erika looks him right in the eye and asks if he's actually cleared out every last monster. Knowing he's trapped, the Count finally gives in and says he'll have the soldiers step up their patrols immediately. Erika sets her teacup down with a quiet clink and tells the Count that his current way of doing things has a limit. Moving on, she asks him if he even knows the real reason why the monsters have been increasing so much lately. Outside the trading post, workers load up a carriage while the Count asks Erika if she's actually claiming to know the answer. Erika tells him the answer is obvious and that it's all because of Alicia, making the Count freeze up in a cold sweat. She reminds him that the Bromia's domain had actually stayed peaceful for the past few years, and it was only because of the special monster repellent that Alicia spent her time developing. Alicia worked herself to the bone making sure that repellent reached every corner of the territory, but since she was kicked out, the monsters have started swarming back into the area just like they used to. So Erika warns the Count that if he doesn't change something, his land is going to turn back into a complete monster's nest. She suggests he at least put some money toward making potions, but the Count just snaps and tells her to stop talking nonsense. The Count slams his fist onto the table in a total rage, making Erika and her assistant jump back. He starts yelling about how he's had enough of that brat. He actually flips the entire table over, sending tea sets and furniture flying everywhere while he continues to scream about how sick he is of hearing Alicia's name over and over again. Erika just watches him with this blank look, but he doesn't stop, claiming the only reason the land was ever peaceful was because of the soldiers he trained himself. And he goes on about how a fake alchemist could never actually handle the monsters from the Great Forest. He's standing there fuming in the middle of the mess he made, leaving Erika sitting there thinking that Alicia was right about her dad. She's honestly surprised that just mentioning a potion would make him freak out this hard. It's getting to the point where she just puts her hand to her head, realizing that trying to talk sense into this guy is a complete waste of time. She looks down and tells him flat out that if that's how he's going to be, then she's got nothing left to say to him. So her guard steps up and puts a hand on the Count's shoulder, telling the old man it's time for him to get out. Erika starts walking away without even looking back. The Count tries to yell at her to wait because he's not done talking, but she's already finished with him. The Count starts sweating as the reality of the situation hits him. He realizes that if the trading company pulls out, his territory is going to lose its main source of income from customs duties. So he starts panicking about how losing the biggest trading group in the kingdom will cause a massive drop in travelers. It's a huge blow he can't afford, and then he suddenly snaps his fingers like he's figured everything out. He looks at Erika and says he finally understands what's going on. He thinks this whole thing is just about Alicia. He asks if she's doing all this just because she wants Alicia back, but Erika just stands there looking completely blank, barely even processing the absolute nonsense he's spewing. The Count keeps going, yelling that he'll agree to bring Alicia back home. He says he has no idea why anyone would care about a fool like her, but if that's what it takes to get the trading company to stay, he'll do it. He's acting like he's the one making a big sacrifice, and he even tells Erika she should be grateful he's listening to her. Erika just stands there with her eyes shadowed, looking like she's about to snap when her guard suddenly grabs the Count by the collar, shutting him up real quick. Erika looks down at him with a sharp smile and points her finger directly at the ground. She tells him that if he's going to ask for a favor, he needs to learn the right way to do it, and that starts with him getting on the floor. The Count is down on his knees, barely whispering as he begs Erika to stay, but she just sits there acting like she can't hear a word he's saying. Desperate to save his skin, he slams his head against the floor and cries out that his whole domain is finished if the trading company leaves them now, and Erika finally looks his way. Sighing as she tells him that if he's going to be that pathetic about it, she guesses she has to listen, making the Count think he might actually have a chance to fix this. But then he sees her face and Erika completely loses it and screams that there's no way she'd ever stay, calling him a total moron of a lord right to his face. She starts heading for the door, telling him she's leaving for good, but first she's going to tell him the two big reasons why she hates him so much. She lays it out plain and simple. The guy has no idea how to run his own land, and she's not about to do business with someone that clueless, especially since the second reason is much more personal. She tells him straight up that she'll never forgive him for taking everything away from her best friend. That old lab was where Alicia put all her heart into helping the people of this territory, and he just went and destroyed it without a second thought. Erika points a finger at him one last time, saying that if he wants even a tiny chance of her staying, he needs to admit he was wrong and apologize to Alicia. Erika has officially had enough and yells at the Count to stop messing around with her. She's not playing games anymore, and the Count looks completely cornered, asking if what she's asking for is even possible. Erika just gives him this ice-cold look and shuts the whole thing down, telling him that if that's his attitude, then they really have nothing left to talk about. She starts walking away and tells him to let go. Meanwhile, the Count is losing his mind on the floor, yelling that he's not done, but he finally reveals his true colors, screaming for Erika to stay because his tax money will dry up without her business. Erika just keeps walking, feeling a wave of pity for Alicia. She can't believe her friend lasted 16 years dealing with a guy that selfish. The scene shifts away from the Count's mess to a quiet shop, where the only hope is that Alicia isn't struggling too hard in this new place. Inside the shop, the clock is ticking closer to the start of the day. It's almost 9, which means Alicia is behind the counter absolutely freaking out, her head spinning because it's finally time to open for business. She asks Luke what they'll do if 0 customers show up, but Rand just tells her she's being a total worrywart. They're ready to start. Rand tries to calm her down, saying she's already done everything she can to get ready. Alicia just sighs and says he's probably right, but she's still slumped over the counter, totally stressed. Luke reminds her that even Erika said there are no guarantees in the business world, and he claps his hands together, telling his new boss to snap out of it and get her head in the game. He points out that there's no turning back now that they've come this far, so Alicia finally takes a breath and says she's ready. She walks over to the front and swings the door open, giving a nervous greeting to whoever might be waiting outside. She announces that her shop, the Green Pharmacist, is officially open for business, but she barely gets the words out before a huge crowd of adventurers loses it, charging the entrance and screaming for her to hand over the potions immediately. Alicia just stands there frozen as guys start yelling to buy up every last bit of the monster repellent she made, and the crowd gets even wilder, with people shouting that they aren't leaving a single bottle of bug repellent for anyone else. She can't even process what's happening, just staring at the chaos because she never expected this many people to actually show up. Luke watches the chaos from the doorway and says this would actually be a good thing if it were a happy situation. But right now it's a total mess as adventurers start brawling over the stock, with one guy yelling that he grabbed a bottle first while another just shouts back that he doesn't care. Alicia watches the riot from the window and realizes that if things keep going like this, they won't even be able to open for business. So Luke tells her to stay back and just leave everything to him. He suddenly draws his sword, making Alicia freak out and ask what he's planning to do with a weapon. Luke tries to play it cool, saying that just to be clear, he isn't going to do anything too rough to the customers, and Rand just laughs it off, telling Alicia there's really nothing to worry about. Luke gets a pretty scary look in his eyes and says adventurers are tough enough to handle it, even if that's not the answer Alicia was hoping for. Suddenly, the sounds of people screaming and crying echo from outside as someone yells out, wondering what's wrong with this guy. A few minutes later, a perfectly straight line forms outside with every single adventurer sporting a massive, steaming bump on their head, while Luke stands guard. A closed sign finally hangs on the door thanks to Luke stepping in. They manage to avoid a total disaster. But Alicia is still completely wiped out behind the counter, wondering how on earth so many people showed up on their very first day. Luke stands there with his arms crossed, mentioning that once the adventurers left, the town's housewives and cooks started flooding in too, leaving every single shelf in the shop totally bare. He tells her it's not that surprising since everyone knows this is the green hair shop now. He smiles while remembering how the whole town pitched in to help hand out flyers. Everyone from the guards to the local maids wanted to see her succeed because Alicia has helped so many people with her potions already. She looks up at him, clearly touched by the realization that her work actually matters to everyone. But then she gets a bit annoyed and tells him he should have said that before they opened. It would have saved her from being a nervous wreck all morning. Luke just gives her a look and says she was so stressed out that she probably didn't hear a single thing he said to her earlier. Rand chimes in to agree that she was definitely tuned out, leaving Alicia looking pretty awkward as they wrap up for the day. But the work isn't over yet. Alicia loses it when she sees a massive line still waiting outside. realizing their sales are way higher than they ever dreamed. The first day is a total whirlwind. Alicia is scrambling around the workshop, desperately trying to keep up with the demand and mix enough potions to fill the empty shelves. Out in the front, things are just as crazy. A group of wealthy-looking women are crowding the counter, and one of them insists on getting a technical breakdown directly from the alchemist herself, forcing Luke to juggle the customers as best as he can. He eventually sees the last of the afternoon crowd out the door, waving goodbye as a mother and her kid head home. The shop finally goes quiet, but Alicia is looking like a total zombie. She mumbles that she's heading straight back to start on tomorrow's stock, making Luke ask if she's even okay enough to stand. He follows her with a worried look, suggesting that maybe she should just take 5 and actually rest for a minute before jumping back into work, but Alicia isn't having any of it. She tells him no way, she can't afford to let the shop run out of products after such a huge start, and then she disappears into the back room. Rand watches the door slam shut and comments that running a whole shop is definitely a lot harder than it looks. Luke stands there holding his broom, looking pretty bummed out. He tells the little turtle he really wishes he could just let her focus on the alchemy part without all the stress. The problem is that since her potions are so high-end and new, everyone wants a pro explanation that only she can give, leaving him feeling kind of useless out front. Rand just sighs as they look at the big house, pointing out that none of them can actually help her with the brewing anyway, so she's stuck doing the heavy lifting alone. A few days pass and the shop is doing better than ever. The shelves are completely empty with sold-out signs everywhere, but Alicia knows things are getting out of hand. She looks absolutely wrecked, with her head spinning as she asks Luke if the crowd of customers is just going to keep growing every single day. Luke leans over the counter and tells her that word about her potions must be spreading fast. They even had people traveling from the next town over just to shop there. Rand the turtle looks up at her, sounding pretty worried as he suggests she just hire another alchemist to help out before she literally works herself to death. Alicia sighs and admits she already tried that by checking with the pharmacist guild, but it turns out there aren't any free alchemists looking for work right now. She tries to laugh the whole thing off, putting on a brave face and telling everyone that she'll be totally fine on her own. She insists that she'll get used to the crazy pace of the shop eventually, but Luke isn't buying it. He looks her right in the eye and tells her she needs to stop pushing so hard. Alicia starts to argue back, claiming that once she gets into a rhythm it won't be a big deal, but Luke shuts her down instantly. He gets this super dark, intense look on his face and repeats himself, telling her for the second time that she is not to overdo it. It turns out Luke can be pretty terrifying when he's serious. Alicia completely loses her nerve and quickly promises him she understands, finally agreeing to take it easy. Alicia looks at her tired hands, thinking about how the shop's reputation is finally blowing up. She feels like she shouldn't be stopping now, but her body is definitely feeling the weight of all that work. She can't help but hope that if her potions get famous enough, her father might actually admit her monster repellent is the real deal and finally give her some respect. Just as the shop is winding down, someone comes to the door and they have to call out that the place is already closed for the night. It turns out to be Erika, who shows up looking as fancy as ever. She gives Alicia a big smile and says it's been way too long since they last spoke. Erika takes a look around and admits the mansion and the shop are actually pretty impressive, while Alicia just stands there in total shock staring at her old friend. Erika just smiles like it's no big deal and says that for now, they should probably sit down and catch up on everything that's been happening. Alicia looks a little nervous about explaining her life lately, but they head inside the mansion to talk. A second later, a massive yell echoes through the whole building because Erika is absolutely losing her mind. She starts listing off everything Alicia did, like getting robbed, wandering into the forest alone, making friends with a lake spirit, and even clearing out ghosts to get a house. She can't believe Alicia also managed to start a war with a workshop chief and get kidnapped by a gang of bandits, asking her how she even finds this much trouble. Erika is laying into her, saying she warned her to keep her skills on the down low. Alicia just stands there with a totally blank look, admitting she doesn't even have a comeback for that since her friend is right. Erika takes a second to sip some tea and cool off, saying that even though Alicia's a magnet for trouble, she's just glad she's still in one piece. Alicia tries to change the subject, asking Erika what brought her all the way to this town in the first place. Erika gets a serious look on her face and starts explaining the real reason she had to pack up her life and move her entire business. She drops the news that the Bromia's territory has actually become really dangerous lately, which leaves Alicia looking completely freaked out. She jumps up and asks if her father is seriously doing nothing to help, but Erika just says there aren't any real plans in place to fix the mess. Alicia looks down, remembering how her father was always so arrogant, claiming his specially trained soldiers could handle any monster without any help. She's clearly torn up about it, quietly asking if there's even a chance for her old home to recover from something this bad. Erika doesn't let her dwell on it though, telling her straight up that it's not her job to worry about that anymore. She reminds Alicia that she and everyone else already did their part by warning the Count how important that monster repellent was. But he just wouldn't listen. Erika tells her that since the Lord was the one who kicked her out, he's the one who should step up and take the hit. But Alicia just looks at her, sounding pretty unsure if things really work like that. Erika gives her a flat look, noticing how totally wiped out Alicia looks right now. She switches gears and tells Alicia she looks like a ghost, asking if she's even been sleeping lately. Alicia looks away and admits that she hasn't really been getting any rest at all. She explains that even though the shop is open, she's drowning trying to make enough medicine to keep up with the demand. Erika just sighs, saying she figured Alicia would end up overworking herself like this. She decides to help out, telling Alicia she's going to lend her a professional compounder from her own staff, which catches Alicia completely off guard. She asks if Erika is really okay with doing something that big for her. Erika just gives a thumbs up, saying it's fine, but she's definitely going to be charging her a fee for the help. As Alicia and Luke walk through the grounds, Luke mentions that it's a huge relief they finally found a compounder, and Alicia just nods, agreeing that things are finally moving in the right direction. Luke leans against the doorframe while Alicia cleans, admitting he's shocked she's friends with someone as high up as the Skrull branch manager. But Alicia explains she just used to help out in Erika's workshop back then. She tells him it was part of a deal to keep her home supplied with monster repellent. Luke asks if she knows the person coming to help, and Alicia promises they're someone with great skills and a solid personality. Just then, Luke spots Erika arriving at the gate and tells her he's been waiting for her to show up. Erika gestures toward the person she brought along, saying she's ready to introduce the new professional. She presents a young boy in a white coat, explaining he's the compounder from her company and his name is Ren. Luke and Ren just stand there staring at each other in complete silence for a second, neither one saying a single word. Luke can't believe they hired a literal kid, but Alicia comes running over to greet Ren as soon as she sees him. Alicia greets Ren with a huge smile, telling him it's been way too long and asking if he's doing okay, but Ren just stands there glaring at her with this incredibly intense and angry look on his face. Alicia looks completely confused and wonders why he's being so hostile, while Ren just bluntly states his name and says he's only here to work because his boss told him to, which leads to Luke introducing himself, while Ran the turtle chirps in from his shoulder to say hello too. Ren is clearly caught off guard by the talking turtle, admitting he didn't think the rumors about spirits were actually true, but Alicia just tries to play it off, explaining that the two of them were basically like brother and sister back at the Bromia's domain, and she's just really hyped to be on the same team again. Ren just turns his head away and huffs, acting like he couldn't care less about their history or being her brother, leaving Alicia absolutely devastated by his cold shoulder, while Luke and Ran just watch the awkwardness unfold from the sidelines. She starts spiraling, thinking that maybe Ren actually hates her now after all this time, even though back when they were kids, they used to spend all their time in the lab together, with Ren always being the one pushing her to keep up. Alicia calls out to Ren as he starts walking away, asking him what's wrong. She tries to find out if he's actually mad at her, but he just brushes her off with a vague answer. Alicia slumps to the ground in total despair, while Luke uses telepathy to ask her if something went down between them in the past. She looks completely drained, explaining that they were actually supposed to be on great terms, making his coldness even worse, so Luke suggests they all sit down and have a real talk while leading her toward the entrance. She reaches out and presses her hand against a glowing magical sensor on the door, and just like that the heavy doors start sliding open, leaving Luke pretty impressed that the whole place is locked down by a magic crest. Alicia explains that back at her family's old lab, her sister Merida used to sneak in and sell off her recipes for cash, and after her father ended up blowing the original lab to pieces, she decided this new one needed some serious security. She tells Ren that since the door only works for people she knows, she's going to get him registered in the system right away. Alicia tentatively tries to get Ren's attention as he works, but the guy is moving like a blur, stacking bowls, and prepping the room with insane speed while she just stands there. She watches him work with total focus, feeling like his efficiency is so high there isn't even a single opening to start a conversation. Ren doesn't even look up before telling her to stop staring and actually start moving her hands, noting that she clearly hasn't been sleeping, and the only way she's getting any rest is if they finish this work quickly. Alicia realizes that deep down Ren hasn't changed a bit, but she still needs to know one thing, so she asks him if he's actually been mad this whole time because she didn't say goodbye when she left the domain. Ren's face immediately twists into a look of pure annoyance, making Alicia flinch back in terror. He snaps at her, yelling that he'd never be petty enough to get worked up over something like a missed greeting, especially since she used to ditch her jobs to hide in the lab whenever she had a new idea anyway. so he's already used to her being a handful. Alicia looks down, finally giving a real apology for the way things went down back at the domain. Ren looks her right in the eye and tells her the real reason he's been so mad. It's because she didn't bother to talk to them or ask for help when things got bad. He brings up how her dad completely cut her off and even torched her research lab, leaving her with nothing but the clothes on her back. And he asks if she has any clue how much they all actually worried about her. Ren looks away, clearly hurt, and says that even though they were close, she still chose to handle everything by herself. He tells her that making those big decisions without saying a word is just disappointing, and it honestly makes him feel like he and the rest of the crew weren't even a big deal to her in the first place. Alicia's eyes well up and she shouts back that he's totally wrong, making Ren pause as she tells him that her fellow compounders are some of the most important people in her life. She admits that if they hadn't been there for her, she never would have survived all those years of her father treating her like trash. Ren keeps working on the dishes while asking why she kept it all inside, and Alicia can only look down and apologize for staying silent. The tension in the room finally starting to break as she explains that back then, she was just too overwhelmed to even think straight. Even so, she looks at Ren and tells him she's actually really happy he cared enough to worry about her, which makes Ren go quiet, looking down at the water as he says he's actually the one who should be sorry. He admits he knew she didn't mean any harm, but he still chose to lash out and be difficult, leaving Alicia leaning in to ask if that means he's not mad at her anymore, and he simply tells her yeah, he's over it. She double-checks to make sure he really means it, and he just gives her another quick nod to confirm. The relief hits her all at once, and she breaks into a huge, genuine smile while saying how glad she is, and then she immediately asks how many days a week he can come over to help. She tells him he's so reliable that she wants to stay together for a long time. Ren just stands there completely frozen, his whole face turning bright red. Ren snaps at Alicia to quit talking and just get back to work. He's clearly back to his usual self and Luke suggests they head back to the shop to start the morning prep, while Ren just nods along from his shoulder. Things in the shop are finally moving. Since Ren joined the team, they're pumping out products twice as fast as before, and the whole business is actually starting to feel stable. Alicia sees a happy customer out the door thanking her for coming by. Just then, Org bursts through the door holding a massive basket of flowers. He's all sweaty and blushing, apologizing for being late because the Great Forest has been crawling with monsters lately. He ignores all that though, just to yell out his congratulations on the grand opening, but someone in the back just starts laughing at how dramatic he's being. Luke gives him the bad news that he just missed Alicia, since she's actually out on an errand. Ren just watches from the side, recognizing the famous adventurer immediately, and Luke explains she's over at the trading company dealing with some shipments. Org just stands there looking completely crushed. Since there's nothing he can do, Org decides to just leave the flowers on the counter and head out. Ren can't help but think about how easy the guy is to read. Alicia heads over to the Skrull trading company to see Erika. When she explains what she needs, Erika asks if she's really trying to ship all these items out. Alicia confirms it, saying she wants these monster repellents delivered to the soldiers back in the Bromia's territory. She just needs to make sure her father doesn't find out. Erika just stands there for a second looking at her, clearly thinking this whole plan is a bit much. She asks Alicia if she's serious about still helping that place, especially after the way her family treated her and kicked her out. Alicia doesn't even hesitate, telling her that she just can't bring herself to abandon the people in the Bromia's territory. She looks down, explaining that it's more than just being nice. She's got a promise to her mother that she has to keep. Erika gives a long sigh and says fine, she'll handle the transport, but she's got one major concern. She points out that just sending supplies isn't going to fix the actual cause of the monster problem. Alicia knows she's right, noting that from what Erika's heard, the monster attacks have been getting way worse lately. She's hoping that if she can stop the monsters, her father might finally understand that her potions are actually worth something. Alicia looks over at the crate she's packed full of potions. She really hopes her plan to help the territory actually works out, and later that day, she sits down for a meal with Ren. He calls her name to get her attention while they eat, asking if she ever plans on doing anything with her life besides just running this small shop. Alicia looks completely blank. She asks him what he's even talking about, so Ren breaks it down for her, explaining that most people only buy potions as a backup for emergencies. We can see an adventurer in the back looking pretty stressed about his choices, and Ren points out that even if things are selling well now, people will eventually stop coming once they've stocked up. The customers nearby are already starting to realize they bought way more than they needed, leaving Ren to suggest that a shop like hers really needs a big, reliable business partner to keep things steady. He thinks it's the only way to stay afloat long-term, but Alicia just stares at him with a stressed look on her face. She asks Ren what he thinks she should do. He can't believe it, yelling at her because she clearly hadn't thought about the business side of things at all. He keeps going, telling her she's way too obsessed with just making potions while Alicia tries to defend herself. Right in the middle of their argument, Luke calls out to her from the door, asking if she has a second. He opens the door with Calva on his shoulder and lets her know that there's actually a visitor here to see her. Ren is totally shocked to hear it's someone from the Cyan region. Turns out a messenger from Lord Gilbert has arrived specifically to speak with Alicia. The messenger from the Cyan region bows and thanks Alicia for agreeing to help the Lord with his request. She finally arrives at the domain, and as the carriage rattles along the road, Alicia looks pretty worried. She tells the messenger she's not actually sure if she'll be much help, but Rand pipes up from her arms, saying they couldn't exactly turn the guy down after hearing such a rough story. Alicia just nods, agreeing that they had to at least try. The carriage pulls up to a massive mansion where the Lord's daughter, Bridget, is apparently suffering from some kind of mystery illness that nobody seems to be able to figure out. They've been trying everything to find a cure for her, and as a servant leads Alicia inside past a line of maids, it turns out they already called in every famous healer and priest around. None of them could do a thing. The servant bows low, basically begging Alicia to save Lady Bridget. They're completely desperate at this point, which is why they decided to track down Alicia in the first place. Rumors about the green pharmacist have been spreading lately, so they sent a messenger hoping she was the real deal. Alicia sits on a fancy sofa while she waits, thinking about how Rand sensed the client was a good person. She left Ren and Luke to handle the shop so she could just check the situation out. But she spots a portrait on the wall and asks if that's Lady Bridget. It's a painting of the Lord's young daughter looking happy with her pet. Alicia realizes this is actually the first time she's meeting a lord who isn't her father. While Rand notes the guy is likely around the same age as Ren, just as the door suddenly bangs open and Lord Gilbert comes rushing in, shouting a welcome to Alicia that catches her and Rand totally off guard. The man introduces himself as Gilbert Cyan, the local lord, and immediately starts falling apart while begging her for help, even dropping to his knees and bowing on the floor as he pleads with her to save his daughter. Alicia is pretty stunned seeing a high-ranking lord lose his composure like this. It's clear he's reached his breaking point, so she tries to calm him down and asks him to stand up, privately thinking the situation must be way worse than she imagined. Gilbert leads her to a door that's been heavily barred with wooden beams and metal locks, explaining that his daughter is kept inside there. He gives her a serious warning to get out of there the second she feels like she's in any danger, and Alicia just nods, saying she gets it. The second Alicia steps into the room and calls out for Bridget, a massive set of claws slashes through the air right in front of her face, and standing in the shadows is Bridget, looking completely feral with wild hair and a terrifying look in her eyes as she lets out a loud, beastly growl. Alicia is completely frozen as she stares at the girl. Bridget's appearance is way more intense than she expected, and Rand yells for her to get back just as Bridget lunges forward with a terrifying roar, her claws out and her face totally wild. The heavy chains on the girl's collar snap tight, stopping the attack just in time. Alicia sits on the floor catching her breath and thanks Rand for the save. As they step back and shut the door, Lord Gilbert rushes over to check if she's okay, and explains that he's already brought in every top doctor and priest around, but none of them could figure out what's wrong, leaving the poor guy breaking down in tears as he talks about how his daughter used to be the sweetest girl. Alicia looks troubled, wondering to herself how someone could even end up in that state. She looks up at a portrait of the girl smiling and happy from before all this started, then tells Gilbert there's one thing she really needs to know. She asks him if Bridget had any run-ins with a monster right before her condition started to change, and Gilbert just looks at her with a face full of shock, like the idea hadn't even crossed his mind. Lord Gilbert explains that a gray wolf had been spotted attacking people in the forest, so Bridget went out to handle the beast herself, leading to him bragging about how she has a level 4 wind magic skill and has always been naturally gifted with magic. Alicia listens and nods to herself, realizing that everything the Lord is saying perfectly fits the theory she already had in mind. She looks Gilbert right in the eye and tells him that Bridget isn't actually sick, she's suffering from something called monster possession. Alicia explains the science behind it, saying that when a monster dies, its physical body is the only thing that's supposed to stay behind, while the soul normally turns into mana and vanishes. But in very rare cases, especially if a powerful magic user is standing right there, that person can accidentally absorb the leftover mana, which ends up trapping the monster's soul inside their own body. The house staff are completely blown away because even the most famous mages and high priests couldn't figure that out. Yet this girl just casually mentions she read about it in some old books at her house. Rand figures those must have been some legendary research papers, but the best news is yet to come. Alicia tells a teary-eyed Gilbert that as long as she gets the right materials, she can brew a potion to fix this. Gilbert gets really emotional and promises he'll track down any material she needs. no matter how hard it is to find, as he practically begs Alicia to please save Bridget, saying he's putting all his hope in her hands. The sudden pressure catches Alicia off guard for a second, so Gilbert asks if she's okay to start right now. She quickly snaps out of it and apologizes for the delay, then begins explaining the specific materials they're going to use, starting with some Yora's grass, which is usually just for keeping monsters away. Next, she pulls out a light leaf, the same stuff people use for exorcism potions, and finally she adds a sunlight flower to the mix. Alicia tells the group that these plants require a very specific kind of prep work to actually work right, and as she gets her tools ready, she warns everyone to watch out because things are about to get pretty bright. Gilbert just nods and stays focused, ready to do whatever she says to help the process along. Alicia focuses her energy on the flower, pouring her magic into it to wake up the power hidden inside, and a massive flash of light fills the room, making Gilbert scream about his eyes as Alicia asks if he's okay. She reminds him that she told him to be careful, but the guy is still on the floor totally dazed. Gilbert apologizes and admits he just got too curious about watching her work, while Rand just stares at Alicia, wondering how she can stay so calm with all that light in her face. Alicia tells him that a real compounder can't let a little glare stop them, but Rand is convinced she's the only one who can handle it. She finally calls out her skill to finish the job, and Gilbert watches as the magic starts to settle, leaving the finished product sitting in a bottle, a high-grade exorcism potion made to wipe out evil vibes. Alicia hands it over and says this should bring his daughter back, which makes Gilbert start thanking her like crazy. But Alicia stops him and says there's one more thing they need to do to make sure the cure actually sticks. Alicia explains that there's more to this than just a potion, telling Gilbert he needs to keep calling out Bridget's name, while she points out that a gray wolf's soul has completely taken over his daughter's body. To peel that spirit away, Alicia says he needs to use strong memories or feelings, anything that helps Bridget find her real self again. She looks at the girl and mentions that even though she's tied down right now, it's still going to be dangerous for Gilbert to get that close, but he doesn't care. Gilbert tells her that if this actually brings his daughter back, then no amount of danger is going to stop him. Alicia watches him walk away and can't help but think how different he is from her own father, even though they're both high-ranking lords. Bridget is still snarling like a wild animal when Gilbert steps up with the bottle, telling her he's going to fix this, and then he starts pouring the high-grade potion right into her mouth as she fights against it. The girl lets out a massive scream from the magic, and the servant nearby starts losing it, yelling about how dangerous this is. Gilbert screams out with everything he's got, begging Bridget to try and remember who she really is. And he starts bringing up the past, telling her she was always his precious daughter and the one destined to lead their land as a lady. It reminds Alicia of how her own father treated her. Gilbert used to tell Bridget that a woman trying to be a craftsman was just a joke, but he keeps going, talking about how she was so good at magic and had a heart that made everyone in the territory love her. His voice shakes as he remembers being harsh, telling her potion making was a waste of time and that he didn't want her shaming the family name. Now he's just breaking down, crying while he says he just wants to hear her talk, see her smile, and have a normal meal with her again. He lets out one last plea for her to please just come back, while Alicia stands there watching the whole thing, and she can't help but feel a little bit jealous seeing a father care this much about his kid, despite everything. But even through the growls and the monster appearance, Bridget's expression starts to shift as the words seem to be getting through. The girl starts crying through her beastly teeth, making Alicia hope more than anything that this man's love actually saves his daughter. Gilbert yells out to Alicia that something is coming out of his daughter's body, and just then a massive wolf spirit starts pulling away from her. Alicia quickly identifies it as a gray wolf spirit that was causing all this, watching them. Alicia thinks about her own life and says she knows exactly how important a father's love really is. So she pulls out her tools and makes a promise that she's never going to let this monster possess the girl again, throwing her work forward. She yells out for the exorcism potion to do its job as the liquid splashes through the air. And the spirit lets out one final horrible scream while Alicia stands her ground, telling herself she has to protect this family. Everything goes quiet as Bridget finally wakes up looking like a normal girl again. Behind her, Gilbert is completely losing it and crying happy tears. His voice is so loud it carries across the entire mansion grounds as he shouts at the top of his lungs that his daughter is finally cured. Meanwhile, over at the guard base on the edge of the Bromia's great forest, the soldiers are standing watch at night, and they're all cheering because a fresh shipment of monster repellent just arrived to help them keep the territory safe. But one of the guards gets a bit choked up while holding a bottle, saying he really thought they were finished when Alicia got banished and the monsters started going wild. The guards at the Bromia's border are finally relaxing, and one of them says he can finally get some sleep now that the shipment is here. His buddy asks what he's holding, but the mood completely dies when Count Bromius shows up looking like he's ready to kill someone. The guards all start shaking, yelling out Lord Thomas's name in a panic. Thomas stands over them and says he heard monster attacks were up, so he came down to give them a little motivation, but he's disgusted by what he finds looking at the crate. He says it's pathetic that his men are clinging to cheap potions like cowards. One of the guards begs him to stop, saying the whole territory will fall without them. Thomas doesn't want to hear it and calls them weaklings before smashing the entire crate of Alicia's work to bits. Meanwhile, things are way better over at the Cyan Mansion where Bridget is finally herself again, giving a polite bow as she introduces herself properly. She looks right at Alicia with the kindest smile, saying she's thankful from the bottom of her heart that her illness is finally gone, and Alicia can't believe how much grace the kid has, thinking to herself that Bridget acts way more elegant than any 10-year-old should. Alicia tells her she's just glad to see her back on her feet, and as they sit together in the drawing room, Bridget leans in with a huge grin, shouting that it's all thanks to her amazing big sister Alicia. Bridget finally stops shouting and hides her face, apologizing for losing her cool and getting so emotional, while she starts spinning around and dancing, saying the healing potion Alicia made worked like magic. She's especially hyped that those nasty scars from her shackles have completely vanished. Alicia just smiles and tells her she's happy to see her doing so well. But the servants and Lord Gilbert are in the back just losing it, crying their eyes out with joy. Rand is sitting on Alicia's shoulder looking a bit skeptical, mentioning that something about the whole situation still feels a little off. Gilbert can't stop the waterworks, sobbing about how his daughter is finally back to the way she used to be, and he just drops to the floor in a full bow, yelling that he doesn't even know how to begin thanking her for this. Alicia starts to panic a bit and reaches out, begging Lord Gilbert and all the servants to get off the floor and stand up. She tells them they've already thanked her plenty since yesterday, but Gilbert isn't ready to let it go just yet. He keeps crying, insisting that saying thank you 1,000,000 times still wouldn't be enough to repay her. Looking up at her with tears still in his eyes, he asks if there's anything in the world she wants. Gilbert tells Alicia he'll get her anything she wants, but she and Calva just stand there completely frozen and not sure how to react to that kind of offer. Erika steps in and suggests that Alicia should just do business with her shop instead, which catches Alicia totally off guard. Erika keeps going, saying she was actually looking for a new partner anyway and thinks they should at least sit down and talk it over. When Erika mentions they have a product called Monster Repellent, Gilbert and Bridget look like they've seen a ghost. They both lunge forward with these super intense faces, yelling and asking if she's really willing to sell them that specific repellent. Alicia is pretty confused by their energy and asks if they actually already knew about the stuff she makes. Gilbert tells her of course they do, explaining that the neighboring Bromia's region uses it to keep monster damage under control. He looks pretty bummed out while admitting he really wanted to get some for his own land. But the stuff is just way too hard to find. Bridget adds that while it's not as bad as Bromia's, people in the Cyan region are still struggling with monster attacks every day. Alicia looks at the map and realizes that since this place has so much nature and the Great Forest, it's the perfect spot for monsters to show up, just like her old home.